Greetings, hello, and welcome to WellVerse Day 2. We had an extraordinary event yesterday for WellVerse Day 1. We see that many of you are joining us here at GatherVerse.live. Wow, and thank you for pulling up. We are seeing our YouTube section for those who want to chat are chatting with us, and we see quite a few people in Facebook and in LinkedIn and a few over in Twitter. Thank you for showing up. We see you at GatherVerse.live. We're with you. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to say that you need help. These and more were a few of the takeaways that we had yesterday for GatherVerse's WellVerse Summit Day 1. Today, we're driving further and deeper into the intersection of wellness and emerging technologies. We're going to be dancing on the line of what the world of wellness and large language foundational models look like in this generative pre-trained transformer era of artificial intelligence. We're going to be exploring to some degree the chasms of what the metaverse and its role in wellness looks like contemporary to our time. We're going to be exploring what is the impact of mass layoffs that have already begun happening. Psychologically, what does that mean for wellness in the workplace? And is wellness in the workplace redefining itself? Are we reimagining? Are we re-expressing? Looking at things differently for how we've used to look at things when it comes to how we look at wellness, and not necessarily looking and considering it a thing of taboo. With GatherVerse, we meet at the intersection of humanity. We drive towards the standards of accessibility, education, safety, and privacy, and wellness, and ethics. We touch on these things, we explore these narratives because we believe that the most important part of technology is humanity, for whom we have been building and making things for all this time. Whether it's headsets or desktops and laptops and tablets and mobile phones and devices. We have been in ideation and hardware and software development for a very long time, for decades actually. But we saw it fit and rather prudent to consider for whom we have been building all of these technologies for. It doesn't gear towards and drive towards sustainability, outcomes. Does it mean that we are heading into an era of innovation where we've out-innovated our own selves? When the technology becomes more advanced than the technologist? Or have we built a tool and a cohort of tools that will assist us in our endeavors forward in these very tumultuous times to come? The ideal, it's why we do it. In the world where we see depression at an all-time high, teen suicide deaths, largely led and expressed by use of social media, where there are those that want to fit in into society, into worlds, and into their cultures. Where we think about what we have built and how they're using tools that we intentionalize to be used for good, but many of these tools have been used for bad. Many of these tools have led to isolation. No matter the color, no matter the gender, we've all been impacted in some capacity by the innovations of mankind. When we think about wellness at GatherVerse, we take these narratives, we pack and place them into an event, we call for those that are the professionals in this world that have been sailing these seas for some time. We huddle together and we gather to express, to share, to amplify, to better understand where we are and where we might be headed. We have an ensemble that are joining us today. Our next discussion will be on Wellness GPT. What might that look like, vertically speaking? And for what type of horizontal impact may we have? We're so appreciative and happy to have all of you here. As you know, GatherVerse is free to attend. It always has been. We ask that you share this story, share this event with others in your community. Let them know that a conversation and a huddle of sorts is happening now. Might I leave you with this? And we're happy to see so many of you coming into GatherVerse.live. It really is thrilling to see the attendance that comes in here. And we're even happy to see those in Facebook and those on YouTube and Twitter and elsewhere. But might I leave you with this? Last year, we did a summit on wellness called Free Spring, and many people asked us why we were doing it, especially coming off the heels of such a successful inaugural event of GatherVerse Summit. And at the conclusion of that Free Spring event, not even within an hour, there was a tragic and horrific school shooting in a place called Uvalde, Texas, where over 20 children lost their lives. And for us, that answered the question as to why we come together under the banner of wellness. Things don't necessarily seem too important until it comes knocking on our doors. I'd rather deal in prevention than have to deal with the fallout of the things that are happening in this world. We'll be with you in just a moment. Thank you, and may our gather be well. Thank you for joining us once again. We're calling up a panel of experts in wellness to be able to join us to have a discussion on Wellness GPT. Audience, we see you, and we're happy to have you here with us. Share this story with others. As we call upon our speakers and guests, greetings, everyone.
Hey, Christopher.
Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good day, no matter where you may be. Dr. B,
Hello.
Katie, and Nick. We're happy to have you. What I want to do to put this in context so that people have an appreciation for what it is that each of you do, we're going to go round robin as opposed to me introducing you. We'll start with Katie, and everyone can mute their mics while we go, and then we'll pass it on so that people have an understanding of who it is that's going to be sitting with us to join us in this panel on Wellness GPT. Please.
Thanks, Chris. So yeah, I'm Katie Walker. I am a nurse by trade. I've been a nurse for a little over 20 years, and I have 2 advanced degrees, one in anesthesia, one in psychiatry. I helped to create a company called Revitalist in the United States, to where we offered ketamine infusions primarily. Really, a lot of my passion kind of came from the creation of the company, to where when I was sitting in the outpatient world, kind of moving from the inpatient world of working in the hospitals for about 20 years, I started noticing that there was such a great deficit in the outpatient world, to where we're not meeting the needs of anyone really on a gross level, to where we really just need to update the entire system. So the company that I've created continues to grow based off of need, not only for adults, but also for adolescents, for geriatrics. Really, I mean, we're all underserved right now I think some of us are trying to advocate the best that we know how, but we're not getting the support that we need. So that's something that we've really tried to not only hear, but also to start effectively addressing. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you for sharing, Katie. Aleda. Microphone, please.
Hi, Christopher. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Katie, I have strong appreciation for your background and your experience. I myself am a medical business consultant, and you were touched on outpatient. So a big part of what I was doing, and the reason why I'm here and I'm so passionate about it is because about 6 weeks before we came into the pandemic, I was subcontracted by a group of practitioners, oddly enough, in the city of New York. So I have strong appreciation. I have understanding of our gaps and our needs across the board, many of which you pointed out. I know where we're at. I have some comprehension of where we're headed, the same as everybody else here today. There's a future that still awaits us that I don't think any of us truly understand or know just yet, but I believe it to be an exciting time. And that's the stance that I take on it. While it might cause a lot of angst across the board, I also have strong appreciation for humanity and the people who are here today and the people who are out there globally. So thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Aleda. Dr. B. Seems like we have a bit of latency.
Hi, Dr. Morgan.
Oh, go for it. We're with you. No, we're not. Nick, you're up. Unmute your mic, sir.
Sure. Chris, thank you so much for organizing this and inviting us. My name is Nick Murray. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wake Network. And my background is primarily in technology. I was born with a laptop, you could say, and I've been building software all my life, and really in the last decade focused on the blend of health and tech and how do those two work together, bringing some of the latest and greatest devices into people's homes, into clinicians' workspaces so that they can offer it to their patients, and really allowing for that data to help guide that journey, whether it's the patients, their families, or the medical practitioners that are helping them. I've really been excited to see what's going on with AI. I do hear the angst. I feel the angst. It's a bit of a worrying new tool, but at the same time, humans have been able to work with technology for thousands, for millennia. And I think in this instance, we will find a way through it as well. So blending things like sensors, wearables, patient-reported outcomes, the ability for patients to have a little bit more knowledge on their well-being, that whether it's their body, their mind, and really having an active role in that that excursion which they're on right now. So their health journey has traditionally really been kind of a top-down. I think this hopefully will allow them to have a little more knowledge and a little bit more of a say in how that journey explores. And so very excited to have this conversation with all of you today.
Indeed. And while we're attempting to get Dr. B back on, let's chop wood. We're going to move forward. Audience, we're seeing this explosion of artificial intelligence unlike any other type of technology been adopted contemporary to our time. It has the profound impact to transform whole entire industries, which we're seeing right now in this transition as we yet speak and gather here today. We gather here clearly under the banner of wellness and to understand the intersectionality of how we might use these technologies, not just limited to AI, but the metaverse, because it interacts and interweaves with this technology and other different types of technology, such as, and we'll be talking about decentralization, Web3, Web2 subsequent. Katie, I want you to bring us into a world from your lens experience of what you've been doing as you briefed us in your introduction, but on the arrival of artificial intelligence, someone that's on this front line, if you will, to better understand, and now that you've had time to think about and exchange with colleagues and begin to look at what does this world, this sea change tsunami that is headed your way, it may have very well reached your shore already. What does that look like to you right now?
So I mean, mine's a little bit more, I'm more ignorant to all the AI stuff as you and Nick and such. But one thing that I've noticed, so like my anesthesia degree is a pretty high intensity degree to where I didn't get to work for 3 years and it was like 80-hour weeks. But with that degree, right? So we're about 99 anesthesia. Actually, pilots and anesthesia are two of the safest professions out there, believe it or not. But we're so safe because it's all evidence based, right? So we really have figured out anesthesia down to a granular level. There's so much evidence based data, and then it's not subjective. Right. That's the beautiful thing about anesthesia. There's different ways that we can do things. Yes. But to get kind of the final outcome is very consistent. One thing I noticed when I moved to the mental health space more specifically is mental health is extremely subjective. It's extremely theoretical. And Dr. Bronstein can speak about this too. But, one thing that I've noticed that where I feel like AI could come into place is what psychedelics and ketamine are allowing us to do is to look at the brain from a very neurologic perspective, and it takes out a lot of that subjectivity and opinions, because one person could go to just 10 different providers and they can receive 10 different diagnoses. But what psychedelics and ketamine are showing us is how consistent it is. So there's a way that we can integrate AI to help make mental health much more objective with data instead of it really being, opinions based on values of individual people, then I think that we would be able to duplicate a system that is of much higher efficacy. And again, Dr. Bronstein could speak about this more so, but I think that's where AI would come in a ton, right? To where if there's a way that we can make the data more objective, make it more consistent, and really kind of take off that subjective opinions from providers onto patients. And that would help to decrease the burnout, I feel, as well, too, because providers are doing the best that they can do with with the tools that they have. But if there's a way that we can consistently make some type of screening tool that would help us to look at, based on these symptoms, this might be what this person's struggling with, to where a provider could actually look at the data and then analyze the data instead of having to create the data on their own. I feel like that's where AI would come in hugely.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you once again for joining us, Dr. Bronstein. We're happy to have you. I'm going to pass the baton to you. But before we do that, audience, welcome to everyone that's joining at GatherVerse.live. We're happy to have you. Right now, we're talking about the intersection of wellness and artificial intelligence. Dr. Bronstein, can you give us a brief introduction of who you are so we have a better understanding of who's expressing to us? And we'll also meet up the question is, wellness in AI, is it a hindrance or is it helpful? Go ahead, sir.
My name is Dr. Mark Bronstein. I'm a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist. I've been doing that for about 25 years. I've been involved with psychedelics for about 30 years. And my practice, I kind of have a niche practice of really focusing on mental wellness and mental health instead of mental illness. I do a lot of deprescribing of psychiatric medications and helping people really to take control of their mental health through positive lifestyle changes. It's very interesting when we talk about AI and psychiatry, because much of what psychiatry does now is simply psychopharmacology and med prescribing. And you're right, there's a lot of subjective input by the psychiatrist, not necessarily be trying to make an objective assessment. And I really see
Well, we're getting Dr. Bronstein out of the broadband zone. Aleda, we're passing the baton to you. Let's pick it right back up. You've given us an introduction of who you are, what you're doing, but we want to go further into that. And from your lens, especially with the things that you've been involved with, the epigenetics, the things that you've been involved with when it comes to quantum, because we know that the use of AI and these large language foundational models leads us quicker to better understanding physics. And therein, where we might find a whole new set of technology introduced to even the best technologists on the planet, where no one, even on a molecule level, has too much of an understanding of what the impact might be with these technologies. But at the question that prevails right now, wellness and AI, is it a help or is it a hindrance? Give us what you got, please.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, so from my stance, I'm going to take it back to, again, reeling back to coming into the pandemic. So first and foremost, one of the number one things that we need is we need the understanding of conscious awareness. That has to happen because our leadership needs to be consciously aware and fully present when they're making like spontaneous decisions, right? Spontaneous decisions in the now present moment, decisions and choices for all of us across the realm. And I say this because now we went from the pandemic straight into technology, right? And so it's going to have a more dramatic impact even than what we came into in the previous 2 years. So people being fully aware and understanding even our own physical systems, this is where I believe technology is giving us the edge, right? And from a perspective of quantum, neuroscience, all of those things, we are just beginning to understand our own capability and our own brain's capability. I mean, back in the early 2000s, medically, we didn't even know that we could have or create new neural pathways and connections. Now we know that there's over 86 billion neurons, all of those with endless synapses connectivity capability. So technology is, again, like you said, Christopher, putting us in a place of new horizons, new levels of comprehension about the world around us that we've never seen, understood, or had available to us before. So we are truly in a place as a humanity of all new, right? All new information across the board with all of our sciences and the world as we've known it.
How do we quantify this new cadre of information as a follow-up?
The information that's coming through, the resources that we have, the building capability that we have with the latest AI and the technology and the telehealth that we have. This, I believe, puts us in an arena with the capability of patients being able to completely, fully embrace and have a lot more control over their own well-being and health on an overall whole with everything in their life.
I see the world of technology, especially within wellness, dramatically changing. I see that one day that I believe that many people may not have the understanding of just how recent even our medical systems in the way that they've been built have been developed and carried on in society, where there was a time where our wellness practitioners would go to each and every individual's home. But that changed or transformed to where we began ingressing into a centralized location. But part of this understanding has always been the capability of telepresence to be able to reach the patient, the practitioner together. With these emerging technologies, not only does it allow us to do this, but as Katie had mentioned, the necessity of data, we're being able to deal and handle data in a way that we've never been able to before, to be able to access necessary and relevant information for one patient that may have impact for other patients around the world. Nick, let's jump onto this. When we talk about technologies and the approach to wellness, as you're a technologist first, but you're also walking in the chasms of wellness, what are you seeing the prevailing technologies, and how does artificial intelligence interact with what it is that you've been doing all this time?
Thank you, Chris. Well, it all comes down to data. You know, your AI model is really only dependent and able to really produce some value if you have solid, strong data to give it. And we've been working with a number of different practitioners over the last decade to really help them bring technology into their practice and then allow for remote patient monitoring as well, so that it's not just at the ingress area where they congregate, but also out into the community. And how do you bring that data in? And that could be sleep data, that could be activity data, medication intake as well. So building all of that together, and then allowing for practitioners as well as patients to be able to learn from others that they may have never met before. That's a really big value add, where AI is able to sift through all of that data to make some recommendations either to the patient, to the provider, or both, and then allow for that conversation to happen. We just recently heard from one of our patients that he has started to use character AI, which is an AI that allows for him to speak to basically what he considers a therapist at any time of day, any time of night, and actually have good conversations. And it has been an adjunct, so he hasn't replaced his therapist with character.ai, but he has found a lot of relief that at 3 a.m., when he's feeling some anxiety and likely cannot get a hold of his practitioner, he can go on and he can talk to his character AI avatar and actually have a conversation. And so it's very important, I think, that this is not a replacement for practitioners. I think it's very much going to be supplemental, helpful. It's a bridge. It's something that could be a teacher. It could be a partner. There's many avenues that AI can take within medical, but most important is that this is very much a tool that can be leveraged both by the patient and the provider. So we're very excited to see how, as you mentioned, and it's very important to kind of really repeat that you're able to learn from others all over the world as they're going through their own journeys, whether you are within the same company or even if you speak the same language. This is a very transformational time where we can learn from what's happening in, southern India, let's say, with depression in North America, without even having those conversations, where the AI is able to actually kind of bridge those gaps and bring that knowledge forward and hopefully allow for a much easier and more fruitful kind of wellness journey for people, where it democratizes the ability for people to access the latest and greatest technology without necessarily having the best insurance program or the most amount of money in the bank.
Democratized availability and accessibility is a really big deal. We're going to touch on so much of that in just a bit, but Dr. Bronstein, I hope that you're still with us. I want to be able to segue to you, sir, and within your body of work, especially dealing with children and youth of the world, if you will, do you feel like with today's technologies that are being adopted and the promise of technologies that to arrive tomorrow, do you feel that our children and youth of the world are in a safer and more well-positioned, or are they not? Your mic, sir.
Safer and more well-positioned, because you're going to have more intelligent medication prescriptions given. You're going to be able to avoid polypharmacy. You're going to drug interactions will be able to avoid more, and it'll really streamline and optimize psychiatric medication treatment. So I think it's going to be safer for children and adolescents in the future, incorporating AI.
Powerful expression. Thank you, Dr. Bronstein. Direct question with a direct answer. Katie, we're going to bring it to you when we talk about democratized access. Nick brought up a great point, and something that you brought up initially when we started talking about data. We're talking about information. Look, it's very interesting to see just in a little bit of time that in the 90s, most of the data that we were dealing with, Nick, was paper. But then we go into this sea change of going from hard to what we call soft. Being able to take all this data of information in the medical theater and translate that into a virtual state. But now we're able to take not just these things that are sitting there in a virtual state for readily available access of resource, but now we're able to do things that expand upon these this transition of data that we've accrued over the years, that we've been able to store within cloud computing, that's allowed us to be able to take this, and now we're doing something different with it, and it's arriving to something more. Katie, I want to go back into the profession of what you've been doing. You're well-traveled. You go and travel often. You're dealing with servicemen and women. You're dealing with military. You're dealing with PTSD. What impact might this have? Because I believe that this is a very important question when we start thinking about the relatability between AI, wellness, and the militaries of this world, especially with the amount of PTSD that's happening and that we're seeing. Does this have the opportunity, or prospect of opportunity, to make things better for our servicemen, frontline workers, healthcare practitioners, those that are doing the things that most of us don't see?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this is a piece of it, right, Chris, is mental health it's different. I mean, Dr. Bronstein came through medical school training, so he's trained much more on data and facts. But a lot of the mental health system, like I said before, it's based on theory. It's not based on facts. So that's something that AI definitely can help us to do with that. But the beautiful thing about, like I always say, it's like AI, ketamine, psychedelics. Those are going to be, that will help us to really kind of reframe the entire system. But, the brain's the brain. And across the world, it's a common language. My personal opinion is I think that our environments, I think the way that we're trained has a lot to do with the way that our mental health works. I think that, elementary school teachers may have more commonalities than veterans, than first responders. And I think that's a language that a lot of times that providers, we feel like we're meeting people where they are, but we're not all the time, because more so people are putting their supposed narrative, I guess, on individuals. So instead of looking at veterans training and as to how they have consciously trained their subconscious to react in situations that they're not in control of in order to help to regain control, sometimes we may more so look at their childhood and focus on their childhood, not really focusing on their short term. So I think there's an integration that you have to focus on their short term trainings as well as their long term environmental factors. And a lot of people just don't have that capacity to look at things differently because we work with athletes a lot, and I played collegiate sports. I understand like athletes' mindsets a little bit better than maybe someone who just never played sports. But I've had therapists tell me as an athlete that, oh, well, that all that came from your childhood. And I was like, no, it didn't. It came from the way I was trained in order to actually succeed in a sport. So it's the same way, like veterans, you drop veterans off in the middle of nowhere when they get deployed, and they have to learn to function in a very foreign environment. But the thing about veterans, and I had first responders actually mention this to me, and it just, gives you greater insight. The thing about veterans is veterans get dropped off in a foreign land, and that's their battlefield. As compared to first responders live in their battlefield every day. So if they're a police officer and then they have to respond to something negative, their family may live 5 miles away. Because there's sometimes the first responders say they have it worse than veterans. Veterans say they have it worse than first responders. I don't care. I just want to help people. But I do think that veterans or first responders have a very good argument when they state that, that if they shoot somebody 5 miles away from their kids' schools, and that's a different type of trauma that a lot of people just don't recognize. So I think for us in society, as we're trying to, I fully believe in acceptance of everyone, yes, but I think there needs to be respect of each individual culture, each individual training, each individual environment. And I think there has to be consideration for each. And I don't think that the mental health world is there yet. I don't think the therapists are there yet. I don't think psychiatrists are there yet. I think Dr. Bronstein is an anomaly of the psychiatry world. And if you speak to psychiatrists who understand a lot more research in psychedelics, you can get on a whole different level of conversation with them as to exactly how the world needs to be. But as Dr. Bronstein knows, there's a lot of psychiatrists and a lot of therapists, they're just not there. And it's probably 80%, 90% of that world right now. And it's very unfortunate, but it's almost like we need to take this whole world and we need to upgrade it to version 2.0 because it's not there yet. And literally people are dying because of it.
Dr. Bronstein, can I ask, and this may be a little bit an unconventional question, but it begs to ask, does the world of AI and psychedelics work together?
Absolutely. I mean, the hope is that down the road with AI, we can really map exactly how the psychedelics are working, and then figuring out how to evoke those responses in the brain without molecules. That's really the next level. Psychedelics. How do we create states with
Could somebody please get Dr. Bronstein some Starlink? He needs a little bit of Wi-Fi in his life. It was so intriguing But Nick, I'm going to route to you, and then Alita, I want you to address the same. Wellness GPT. Right now, generated pre-trained transformers are widespread. For the very most part, they're a horizontal thing where you get this chasm of information that you can summons up. You can have this dialogue with this very simple AI, which some people believe is AGI. That's for a different discussion that we'll be having in June. But for AGI audience, for those that are with this artificial general intelligence, there are many that say we haven't arrived there. There are many that are saying that we have, especially those that are of the psychology note that are saying they've never interacted with the type of technology that has the capability to leverage the data within its own self and to be able to adjust its information and its rendering output. They're not used to dealing with that. And they're saying that it's not necessarily what they first think is sentient, but it is on the front lines of something that's interacting like a human being would, sitting across from them, if you will. But it begs to ask the question, when we talk about generative pre-trained transformers in today's modern world of what we're looking at in society, is it prudent? Does it make sense, since all these large language foundational models are scraping the data and availability of data in the world, the internet, if you will, the web, if you will, does it make sense for us to begin to vertical focus on specific models that are dealing with specific subjects in specific industries, primarily wellness, to be able to take a whole cohort community of wellness practitioners and explorers and to be able to take from their mind, their human intelligentsia, and to route that into a foundational model that will have accurate information, that will have specific direct resourced information. Now, the information is subjective, but it will have resourced information on who is saying what under the banner of wellness instead of the interpretation of AI. Does it make sense to have a wellness GPT, Nick?
Absolutely, it does. And I like where you're going with kind of putting into verticals different views. So you could have the Ayurvedic view, you could have the PubMed research view to take translational medicine from the bench, let's call it, the clinical research organization, into the clinic. And so it would be interesting to have the world where you did have a multitude of wellness GPT models that are verticalized, and then they are able to actually have conversations with themselves. So you could have a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion, all from different areas of medical and different areas of research that are able to come together, have a conversation. The patient gets to see what the Ayurvedic GPT thinks, and then they also get to see what the PubMed latest research translational models thinks, and then they could see what somewhere across the Atlantic thinks, and together the patient could actually have a little bit more of an informed decision, and then kind of as an aggregate, the wellness GPT could say what they recommend based on the 10 opinions that were received from the different models. So we are democratizing a lot of information, and that's the most exciting thing. When I first got into the health tech world, I started to hear the word translational medicine. And what it means is taking from the clinical research world and bringing it into the clinic. And maybe as a Luddite in the health world, I thought that's what doctors were doing. I thought that they were bringing, the research world into their practice on a fairly regular basis. But that's actually quite an anomaly. And if you speak with a practitioner, it's not expected that they have been up on the research in their field, and they're bringing it into their practice. It's not a straight requirement. Now, Wellness GPT, that we're calling it here, can do that, can sift through PubMed, Google Scholar, and really bring all of that information and bring it together with the unique variances of a human, of the person that they're actually trying to help, and really bridge those two together. And you don't need a group of interns. You don't need, it to be a professor at a big university to help you with that. This is something that can be in the palm of your hand with your phone. So it's a very, very exciting time where we can bring untold amounts of data into actual summarization so that people can make sense of it, and then they can actually bring it into their world and hopefully, get better as a result.
Indeed, and thank you for sharing, Nick. Alita, I follow up with you. Do you share in this similar enthusiasm and excitability from your area expertise of work?
The answer is yes on an overall whole, because this addresses the whole wellness of the overall being. There's a huge gap right now and a need for there to be understanding from a homeopathic remedy medicine stance as well as prescription needs. And so this would allow many practitioners that haven't, they don't have a strong understanding of natural anything yet. If there's some label on the back of anything, right, it says ask your doctor, but doctors don't have all of the answers because they haven't been trained in some of these fields, and they're specialized fields. And so I believe that this would also potentially allow strongly for whole integration of healing systems globally across the world. So, more of a treatment aspect that allows for an entire treatment process for the overall well-being of people from mental health all the way through. And when you mentioned like, who are we going to source the data from, right? And so I do think that there's a strong need for paying attention to reliability of where we're sourcing information from as well. I think it's great that it's all coming in. When it comes to wellness in particular, I think it's very important, right, to pay attention to where all of the data is being like scooped in from as well. That's it on my part on this. So the answer is yes on an overall whole. I'm super excited about the direction that this can take us in, because it changes, again, everything has changed. Our entire world has changed, and people just don't yet realize it, I don't think.
Dr. Bronstein, from your approach and from your lens of expertise, when we talk about having a wellness GPT, do you feel like this is something that's feasible for near future? And if so, what do you believe are best steps towards taking it to take that next step? More startling for Dr. Bronstein. Katie, I'm rounding it over to you. Will you see this as a value add if we do indeed go towards the sentiments of what Alita and Nick have expressed when we talk about the benefit of Wellness GPT? Do you feel in your line of work that Wellness GPT can be an asset, or do you feel like it might be a threat towards what you do for wellness?
Well, I'll tell you, in the medical world, they're all going to feel like it's a threat initially, because it's what we do, right? It's a very egocentric world. But here's the thing about it, right? Is it's first, do no harm. So I feel like the more that we can standardize pieces and make aspects more consistent, I think that there's going to be no argument, right? And that's the data piece of it. So, like I said, I'm all about the data aspects. The anesthesia world, love that world. The psychiatry world, it's offensive, actually, how bad it can be. And, with the psychiatry piece. But I think that, what we want to do is we want to try to standardize with the data pieces, because I think it's like 78% of people are misdiagnosed in mental health. And I mean, and put that into capacity as to thought processes with like heart surgery. Like, what if you were misdiagnosed? Like, oh, sorry, Chris, you didn't really need heart surgery. We misdiagnosed you. Like, can you understand, the capacity of that, and you're talking about just the cardiac system, right? It's just one other organ. The brain is the ultimate computer system of the entire body, to where there's actually data showing that if you do psychedelics, at least one time in your life, your actual cardiac function is improved for the rest of your life. And they're actually showing 2 people who have done psychedelics after having myocardial infarction, so like a heart attack, their tissues actually repair more quickly, right? So we look at cardiac function or misdiagnosis of renal function or your kidneys or whatever else as like being this like, oh my gosh, that's completely unheard of. Like, how could they do that? And every day we're misdiagnosing people of the brain, every day.
Katie, I have to have a quick follow-up just for brevity to make sure that the audience understands. For those that are leaping in here with GatherVerse.live, and we welcome all of you. When we talk about psychedelics, we're not talking about taking a stroll on the beach and dipping acid and shrooms. What are we talking about? Can you draw that out just so we have a little bit more clarity on that? Because it's widely subjected to understanding the days of Woodstock, if you will. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here.
Yes. So here's the no one's ever really been able to really look at the brain consistently because, like I said, with mental health, it's very much been a lot of theories, a lot of FDA, big pharma medications, things like that. So while their data is consistent, a lot of times that data can be slightly skewed to whatever results the person wants to see, right? So psychedelics, psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, there's a wide array, right, of psychedelics out there, but then also the drug ketamine that's been around for over 50 years now. We're seeing that they all have some type of psychedelic similarities. And basically what they're able to do is there's a ton of studies out. They've been working on studies since the 90s, probably the 80s. Dr. B could speak to this more so than I could. But I think the maps where they were actually looking at psychedelics started in 1985. And this is so basically a little bit of a history. Yes, Woodstock, everyone did psychedelics. Everyone got scared. No one knew, even though they were having really great studies showing some great results. That was when Nixon actually outlawed all psychedelics. So it stopped all the data. In 1985, it got started back again with psychedelics. And now we're seeing that ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA, there's actually a lot of great FDA trials that are out there with these substances that are showing consistency with dosing and consistency in results. And the efficacy that we're seeing across the board with psychedelics, there's zero comparison basically with the traditional medications that we have right now for mental health as compared to psychedelics. And psychedelics are also showing us that you can actually go into remission of your symptoms with mental health, right? Or you can break this cycle of what your mental health is doing. And it's so, this can be depression, anxiety, trauma, PTSD, PTS, whatever people want to call that, suicidality, even neurodegenerative aspects. So Parkinson's, ALS, multiple sclerosis, MS, dementia. It's the brain, right? We're seeing that the brain's actually responding very, very positively to psychedelics. But yes, as you mentioned, we don't want to be like out on the streets buying these drugs or anything like that, even though that's the only angle that the DEA is kind of giving us right now, because they're all illegal unless you are in a study in the United States. Fortunately, Nick has a psilocybin farm down in Jamaica where psilocybin's legal, and he actually has psilocybin retreats through Wake. But we're seeing that there is consistency there with psychedelics. There's dosing consistency. And this is something everyone needs to be curious about because it's changing the complete way that we look at mental health in a very non-biased global response, because people are duplicating the studies in Australia as much as they are in Canada versus the United States. And this is something that the world's never seen before. So I think it's going to change the entire landscape of mental health.
Indeed. It seems to me once we have more access to information, Nick, and once more people and communities have better access to information, they're going to see a world unlike anything they've ever known before when it comes to the entry of wellness and medicine. We often relate to Eastern practices and Western practices, but can't we possibly imagine seeing a world that's much more beyond East and West and completely redefining and imagining how we look at this?
That's the most exciting time about this exciting time, is that we do have this convergence of psychedelics and AI, and they are both democratizing access to wellness. You have a world in the West anyway, where unless you had insurance or unless you were wealthy enough to buy privately, you didn't have access to the latest and greatest, whether it was information or the drugs. And now with psychedelics, they're not thousands of dollars. And with AI, it's not thousands of dollars. And so you have this wonderful time where people can actually take ownership of their mind and ownership of their wellness through tools like AI and tools like psychedelics, and some of these new trained practitioners in places like Oregon, which is the first state where people can actually access in the US. And we do see the opportunity of these tools being available state by state, growing very quickly, similar to how cannabis did. There's so much we don't know still. We're using some of the latest technology like functional MRI to be able to analyze the brain and to see how psychedelics are actually affecting the brain. But it's still very, very early days. But back to what Katie said, the research that's coming out, and this is from places like Johns Hopkins, Imperial College of London, it is you cannot argue it, that the data is showing that people are being helped 80+% with things like depression through the help of psychedelics. With the antidepressant market, the SSRIs, the SNRIs, we're seeing about a 20%. So it is a 4x multitude of progress, positive progress, when you work with things like psychedelics. And what's amazing is that this isn't a daily thing that's required. It's not a pill per day. This is something that is very transformative. And then for the most part, people don't need another dose for 12 to 24 months, if ever again. So when you pair that with psychedelics, when you pair psychedelics with AI, we have an amazing time where we can build a huge corpus of data, whether it's the brain data, the subjective data, the objective data, their sleep, their activity, and then use AI to find meaning out of it. But as Katie said, and we've heard it the same, people who try psychedelics do have a cardiac response, and a lot of that is because they are more open to going outside. They're more open to going shopping. Their anxiety is less. And so it's something that a lot of people prescribe to mental health, but the body is affected quite beneficially as well. So it's a very, very exciting time.
It's a very fascinating consideration. I have a bit of an itch, Aleda, and I'm hoping if you can help me scratch. I hear it, WebMD. I hear it, Johns Hopkins. I hear it, Kaiser Permanente, Kaleida Health, Stanford Medical, NYU. I hear it, these keepers of this data, these builders of these platforms. But I also know in this world that there's a whole fleet of individual practitioners that operate under their own leave, if you will. So we have large corporation company, and we have the individual practitioners and small boutique, if you will, practicing operations. And I know that Nick and Katie, we talked about privacy when it comes into the reality of the patient. Here in North America, we talk about HIPAA compliance, don't we? Aleda, I want you to bring from your lens, when we look at this dichotomy, we look at this balance, uneven balance, the approach that we'll take when it comes to developing Wellness GPT, are we at a point right now, because we see these makers of these technologies going to Congress and to other governments, and governments are wrapping their minds around what it is that's being built in the hallowed halls of Google and Microsoft and OpenAI. And they're saying, wow, as Senator Dick Durbin of the United States Congress said last week, we are used to approaching technologists in Silicon Valley and throughout to help keep them accountable for what they're building and distributing out into the public and keeping of the information of the public. We're not used to those coming from Silicon Valley and elsewhere arriving saying that we need the help of government, because this technology that we have unleashed, that has been rapidly adopting, even as we yet converge today, is unlike anything that's ever reached the shores of market and adoption before. And we're going to need help. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, said we're going to need philosophers, we're going to need government help, we're going to need law enforcement, we're going to need technologists, we're going to need those in technology, not in technology, to help us to be able to guide this. Here's my question. Aleda, when I look at what's happening in real time right now with this explosion of AI, is this the time to call all willing and able members to participate in developing this next era of intelligence that's being manufactured and developed? Or should this be in the hands of only large corporations and companies that have the real means and the deal flow capability wherewithal, or should this stay within public sector? These are tough questions. You're on.
So my thought process with this is all hands on deck. One of the beauties about this open capability is that it allows for open forum. And so I'll give you an example like this. Oftentimes we have CEOs and leaders who build and develop amazing corporations, but there's gaps in a lot of what they structure and create that evolve into huge inefficiencies and or lack in some capacity. It could be designed so much better if you're always gathering information from those who are in the departments, who are in the specialized fields, who are in the trenches in those areas, and getting the information from them before you design and build. Does that make sense? So the biggest mistake they make is they pack their ego to the table. And they think they are the most genius mind in the room. And we now should all be to a place to where we value everyone's genius mind and their strengths and their specialties.
Right.
And we should be gathering as much information from these individuals as possible. And this is more what I would consider high level thinking. But this is why I say it has to be high level conscious thinking, right? So conscious awareness, psychology today, it's like they say we're conscious 5% of the time. I think psychedelics, my perspective is that it probably opens our conscious awareness. EEGs will show us a lot more about all kinds of things and activity in the brain with all of these different things, right? So that's something that I'm sure will be watched and mapped, but it also creates an open heart coherence. So when you have an open heart coherence and you have a logical mind functioning together, that's optimum. That's what needs to be cultivated. And the people who are in leadership positions need to be developed on, would be the first thing that I would say. High level thinkers need to be a part of this because it impacts everything, and it should be globally. This is humanity that we're talking about right now. Like this isn't a game. We are on the cusp of everything brand new. Everything brand new.
Indeed. Thank you for answering and such an insightful response, Aleda. Katie, I have two questions for you. The first being, when we talk about the front line, we talk about first responders who you intimately have been dealing with for some time. Do we, in this present age, where PTSD is seemingly at an all-time high now, do we today have enough practitioners to serve the working world of military and first responders?
No, we don't have enough practitioners, period, right? So when you go to medical school, so nurses usually get about, undergrad nurses who get like their bachelor's degree, they get about 4 months training of psychiatry, and they do rotations and such. No one really knows that 4 months of training is about 300% more training than most physicians get in medical school. Because with medical schools right now, physicians are only getting about 6 weeks of mental health training before they actually get, released, and they become the ultimate, where I think family practice, Dr. Bronstein would know these statistics more so, but I think family practice prescribes about 70% of all mental health drugs. So when they've only had 6 weeks of actual studies in school, and they're actually giving this mental health piece, they become the, not experts, but they become the majority, right? There's a standard of care is that your primary care is actually addressing your mental health more. So what happens in medicine is everyone becomes territorial, very much so territorial. And it's much worse in the outpatient world than it is in the inpatient world. But what happens is when you go to the ER, if you're having suicidality, right? So, hey, I'm having suicidal thoughts, call 911, go to your closest ER. So what do we do in the ER? When you come into the emergency room, if you're having suicidal thoughts, first thing we do is medicate you because we don't want you to hurt yourself. So we're going to chemically sedate you, right? There's no talking. There's nothing addressing the suicidal piece. So we're going to sedate you with some type of benzodiazepine or another drug called Haldol. And it sedates you. And then if you're still suicidal when you wake up, then we're going to have you committed. And we're just going to hold you there because we're not comfortable talking about mental health because we've never been trained as providers. Well, then you get psychiatrists who come in, and not like Dr. Bronstein, but you get psychiatrists who come in who say, well, we're the professionals in mental health. No one else needs to be treating mental health except us. And my personal opinion is we need to start educating the entire world on mental health, and we need to flip the script, right? Because right now there's a 70% shortage of providers in mental health space. Psychiatrists, it takes about 7 years to grow one. So we're going to lose half the nation in 7 years, because everyone's killing themselves right now. But then two, the interesting piece of like the way we look at mental illness is with suicidal thoughts, we treat people like they're mentally ill if they have a suicidal thought, when 70% of people at one time during their life will have a suicidal thought. 70%. So it's actually more common than it is not. So my personal opinion is, if you have a suicidal thought, call 911, go close to CR. No, don't do that. My personal opinion is we need to switch the way that we're educating everyone. We need to start with their little babies that are in kindergarten to start these coping mechanisms. And basically we say, when you have thoughts of hurting yourself or others, not if, but when you have thoughts, then these are coping skills that we want you to utilize. Right. Because we just need to expect that this is going to happen. And I have a 13-year-old daughter. I was actually talking to her yesterday, and I'm still working on trying how to address this, but she's very consciously aware of mental health. We speak about mental health very granularly all the time. But she was talking about the kids in her 7th grade class and how it's very common for kids to talk about their suicidality. And, they're like, yeah, like so-and-so, she told me, she's like, I was caught off guard a little bit, like I said, but she said, no, they talk about suicide all the time, and they talk about their plan. And I'm like, have you told anybody this? And she said, no, we don't want to rat each other out. And I asked her, I said, is it more females or males? And she says more females than males. But she's like, yeah, mom, like this is common. Like kids talk all the time how they're going to kill themselves if something doesn't work out, because they talk about how there's no purpose in life. And I mean, it was a good conversation that we were having, but I was like thinking, we've got to make these kids feel like it's okay to come and tell us this so we can help them to build additional skills, not to say, oh, you're sick, let me put you on drugs, let me put you on medications. And, and another commonality that I use a lot of times is like, say Nick wants to be an NFL athlete. Okay, so here's what we would do in mental health. If Nick wants to become, a linebacker in the NFL. In mental health, we would say, Nick, I'm going to put you on testosterone. You don't need to do anything else. I'm going to put you on testosterone. Let me know how the NFL goes. When in reality, Nick may need some additional training in order to play in the NFL and additional skills built, right? But in mental health right now, we just expect people have skills. And if they don't, and they're not functioning correctly with their thought processes, we just give them medications and say, here, this will help your thought processes. And it makes no sense as to what we're doing. So, there's, as Alita said, we're at a huge transformational time right now for humanity. If we don't address it literally, I think we're losing more people now than any war has ever taken for mental health. And it's like, we're in the biggest war that we've ever been in, and nobody can see it. We are our own worst enemy, literally. So there's a lot of growth.
Thank you, Katie, for sharing that. Nick and Alita, to leave the last 2 minutes with you as a follow-up that I was going to follow up with Katie, but time escapes us, doesn't it? Being that we do not have enough health practitioners to serve mankind, humankind, for human betterment, does this justify us delivering a fleet of AI assistants and guided help under the banner and control of the practitioner? Nick?
100% it does. I think that whether it's our economic system or the traditional medical system or the combination of both, we have had a system where you're not in control of your wellness. And if you have an issue, you must go to some place and talk to someone. And what they tell you to do, you must follow. And if you want to get a second opinion, there's a little bit of a myth with the first opinion, and they don't like to hear that you want a second opinion. It's been a very broken model for a long time. And this has led to a shortage, led to burnout, led to a lot of angst between patient and provider. And it is this time right now that is really the convergence point where people are kind of fed up with what we've had before, and they feel the delays. They can't get into an appointment for weeks, months sometimes. It is a necessity. And so mother is the invention of all, sorry, necessity is the mother of all invention. And when we're seeing it, we are seeing that people need to be able to take control of their own mental wellness, their physical wellness, and they want more data and they want more opinions and they want more information. And unfortunately, they don't have a lot of money to be able to do all of those things under the traditional system. But now what we have is AI that is able to sift through all of the data, whether it's different schools of thought or different research studies, and then they can make their own decisions up. And this is what we need as humans. We need to be self-sufficient as humans for the most part. We need to pull from tools where they're available. We need to make our own decisions. And I think that AI is going to allow us that power.
Thank you, Nick. Leda, we're dropping you with the last word. Please give us your brief expression.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly say that there's as many miracles happening every single day as there are tragedies, and we're just not seeing it broadcasted across all of our news stations. So conscious awareness again and understanding of that is where it's at, and people finding their purpose. You hit on that, Katie. People need their purpose. That's what we need help. We need to help facilitate in the world.
We value each of you, audience at GatherVerse.live. With the many of you that are with us today, we're so happy to see you. And whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, we're happy to see you as well. Wellness GPT. We've come to find out today that it is relevant and rather appropriate. Thank you for having us. Thank you for letting us gather with all of you today. Nick, you'll be joining us again soon. Aleda, Katie, we send you our best. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome to WellVerse Day 2 Summit. We're here for our next panel. We're happy to see all of you here with us at GatherVerse.live and elsewhere throughout our social platforms, carrying and holding discussions. We know many of you are broadcasting to your whole entire offices right now. We see you and we hear you. We know you're there. We're happy to have you join us today. Even our folks over at the YouTube chat stream and elsewhere, from Twitter to Facebook to LinkedIn. We're here for our next panel discussion on decentralization at the intersection of wellness. We've summoned a cohort of practitioners, of technologists, and how they're looking at this rising world of Web3, the metaverse, and AI. Shall we begin? Each of you, we welcome all of you. We're going to do a round robin of introduction of who you are and what you're doing here today in this gather. We're going to start with Charlene. We ask that everyone else mute their mics. And after Charlene, we'll pass it on and pass it forward. And then we'll delve into a series of questions. We have a lot of wood to chop. Charlene, welcome.
Thank you so much, Christopher. And my name is Charlene Nichols. I am a returned speaker on the GatherVerse panel, so excited to be here again. Quick elevator spiel of who I am. I am a champion for the optical and eye care industry. I've been fighting for the last 6 years to develop decentralized platforms and solutions that empower all of the different layers of the ecosystem. The optical and eye care industry, like many other industries, are very complex, and like many other industries, are very centralized. So if you want to decentralize an industry, you have to facilitate it with frictionless technology. Otherwise, you'll just be disrupting it and not necessarily facilitating it. So I am the founder of the Omniverse City. It was inspired by the optical metaverse. This was a platform that was developed by community, much like the GatherVerse was formed, to bring opticians, optometrists, and the people who love their eyeballs and the ability to see together so they can really start to reimagine vision and, more importantly, vision care. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you, Christopher, for inviting me.
We're happy to have you, Charlene, and thank you. Salman, we have you up next.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much to Christopher and everyone at GatherVerse for putting together this wonderful event. We truly need to be talking about wellness in the midst of this chaos that's going on, and tech transformation and everything, digitalization. My name is Salman Halawi. I am an entrepreneur, futurist, keynote speaker, and the founder and CEO of Meta Designers, a Web3-based services platform aimed at connecting brands with trusted Web3 service providers. Apart from that, I am also a youth advisory board member of the United Nations Development Program here in Lebanon, and I seek to create value alongside all of these wonderful speakers in the next 1 hour that we have.
Salman, we're always happy to have you gather with us. Welcome. Nick, welcome back once again.
Thank you, Chris, and a warm welcome to everybody. And thank you for putting this on, Chris. It's much needed at this time, and the conversations are wonderful. I'm Nick Murray, founder and CEO of Wake Network. We are the largest psychedelic mushroom producer in Jamaica, and we have been working with a number of researchers and medical practitioners over the last 4 years to really bring the knowledge and the therapy of psychedelic medicine to people around the world. We are really excited to be allowing for a decentralized model of research as well as wellness through the tools of Web3, and really bridging the ability for people to speak with a practitioner from anywhere in the world, and most importantly, be able to gift that to anybody in the world. So very excited to dive into this conversation and really learn from everyone.
Nick, we welcome you. Javier, you're up. You've been exploring Web3. We've been seeing you. Welcome to GatherVerse WellVerse, sir.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Javier Calderon. I think this is like the second time I've spoken with GatherVerse. I am the Chief of Engineering of MetaEngine. What we do basically is we are a game engine where we make it easier for people to onboard any form of Web3 into their games or ecosystem or even metaverse. Something unique about us is we're also exploring new avenues to bring in AI to where it's possible to create like an NPC, chatbot, or something cool into your game to where it can identify your brand or anything else that you could do.
Thank you, Javier. We welcome you once again. Chris, you've been on an exceptional path. Welcome to WellVerse.
That's right. Thank you so much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here with so many people. And I hope to learn so much from all of you. I think I'm coming from a little bit of a different perspective, coming from the education world. And specifically, I've started a business that helps people with ADHD and executive function delays, particularly students from middle school through young adulthood, college, and beyond. And just seeing all the opportunities that lie ahead for people with learning disabilities and just with just wellness in general, and connections that can be had and made through some of the ideas that everyone is discussing here, as well as the benefits and the downfalls or the potential dangers of AI on the education world, and how that's going to be addressed, and how students and learners in general can use it to their advantage instead of falling for plagiarism and other potential difficult situations that need to be navigated carefully. So I'm interested in hearing perspectives and learning more and adding what I do have from my perspective.
Plagiarism and many other featured things that you can add to that list, Chris. We welcome you. Paul, welcome back to GatherVerse once again. If you unmute your mic, sure, we're happy to have you from so far away.
Yes, definitely. I took the longest train back to the GatherVerse. And I think we should rename the metaverse to the GatherVerse because it's where we all get to meet people who are, interested in changing the social scape of the world around them using AI and the metaverse. So yeah, my name is Paul Mudiga, but I have got so many long names I can't fit on the screen. We're gonna go with that for now. I'm the CEO of Africa VR Campus and Center. And what we are doing is we are building the metaverse technology for social use from the grassroots up. Thank you.
We welcome you. Audience, those that are with us today, at this particular session, we're about to delve into the world of decentralization, Web3, metaverse, and AI. We're going to see what it looks like under the banner of wellness as a whole. You've heard so far the introductions from our speakers that have come to gather us today. Each man and woman an expert in what they do and what they've been focalizing for some time. Today is a moment of information and distribution and voice amplification. We're getting ready to take it there to a heightened step, and we're going to accelerate the cadence as we have a lot of ground to cover. There's many people that are with us, Charlene. When I think about what your work has been, Charlene, and under the banner of wellness, when it comes to the metaverse, you've been on quite a journey. What I want you to do is share with us why my eyes are so important in this new emerging world to come. I believe this is quite prevalent, and what the metaverse means towards the impact of this therein. Your mic, please.
It's really an important question, and I'm gonna break it down to a word that came to me, and when this word came to me because you and I were actually having a conversation. When I was pivoting from the traditional way that I was communicating with the industry through, virtual platforms like a Zoom style platform and, physical meetings and things like that into the metaverse, I had to find a way that I felt was relevant. And the word visualization kept coming to mind simply because it sounded sophisticated and advanced and technologically appropriate. But I wanted to really understand that word before I started using it, because in my industry, which is mostly optometry and optical related, there was this kind of unique relationship between optometry and neurology, which I didn't really understand until I started to mess around with this word. Okay.
Sure.
And when you think about visualization, and I strongly suggest that everybody Googles this word and understands it at depth. Ask ChatGPT, ask a friend, anyone that you want, because we all need to really understand the power of visualization. This is what controls our memories, our reasoning, our way of processing information. It is really, really, really important. And I've learned that it's really a big component of AI. Actually, it's one of the ways that they actually train some of these technologies is through a form of visualization that's more. And I'm not going to speak to that because I'm not an expert here, but it just speaks to the idea that the information that you receive visually as a human through your eyes really shapes everything that you are as a person. If you think about movies that you've seen that have defined cultural shifts and, your parents, the things that they do, you think about your mother's face or your father's face or your children's face. Like these are all memories that you have because of your ability to see. Now, in the age that we're in, where we're all using technology more than we ever have before, there is literally, I know this, I come from an industry that does the research that we all use to determine trends and shifts. I'm sorry to tell you, there is not enough time for us to measure the impact that all of these new lengths of time that we're spending in front of all sorts of new technologies. Now we're moving technology even closer to our face with VR. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's severely understudied. And we have a responsibility, and I have a responsibility as a champion for the bridge that's going to connect the Web3 AI and technology world with the vision world to really communicate in a better way so we can have sustainability specifically related to vision.
Indeed. Javier, you're up. Thank you, Charlene, for expressing that. We'll put a pin in that. We will be addressing more of that in a moment to come. Javier, help me to make sense of something here. When you were with us with GatherVerse, we weren't seeing this complete explosion of AI, of these large language foundational models and generative pre-trained transformers that we're seeing now. We're, however, seeing an explosion, or perhaps even in a sunset towards the winter, of crypto assets and NFTs, if you will. It's at a variance. Help me and help us all to make sense on where are we right now when it comes to Web3, and how might wellness be ensued with everything that we're seeing presented?
So how would Web3 be ensued into wellness across it? Give you a little more specific, so this way I'm not so technical across it as well.
Go for it.
Question.
When we talk about that, we talk about this Web3 era with everything that you're building with MetaEngine, with the focus. It surely has been disruptive in your way of thinking of what it is that you've been crafting, if you will, whether in your alpha and your beta. What are you seeing?
I'm actually seeing just a lot of transformative tech across it, to where people could be building just like unique experiences across the metaverse, where I've seen even people develop like a full-on way to where you can prompt your own experience. Like if you think it, you can type it, you can create it. And across that, I've just seen just like a variety of methodologies just to create, like, say, like a full-on NFT to where it can actually support other people for what their causes are, for what they idealize and conceptualize. Even to where, like, as they continue building an NFT or collection, or I'd say now more collectible in terms of it, they can actually integrate that to bring, say, more of like an experience towards that specific collectible, where they're just showing people like, hey, this is what actually is what we are about, and also what we represent. When it comes down to, say, like the technology as a whole, there's just so much room across it. Like for me lately, for the past maybe month and a half, or even longer than that now, 8 months, I've been diving deep into AI as a whole and learning that you can do quite a lot of this behavior modeling. Also, a lot of these LLMs to where you can actually structure things out to where you can develop like a full-on NPC with a behavior model right behind it, to where it can actually engage and personify your brand, your vision, your ideas with the proper guardrails, as well as also just behaving as, say, a specific individual. Like, say, you could have it act as Justin Bieber, it could act as like some form of personality or anything like that, to where they can personify anything and even express that vision across it. It was very unique as I was like running across this research and testing things out.
Let me give a brief follow-up to that, Javier. You do have a certain temperament when it comes to understanding the Web3 community. Largely, is the Web3 community the frontline builders of these technologies? Remember, audience, artificial intelligence is not a single variable equation. It's a multivariable equation in which it interacts and intercedes with all of these other different technologies that are being developed and ascending right now within the eco-habitat. Javier, largely, or even maybe perhaps even on a boutique fashion, is the Web3 community embracing AI?
I think they're slowly embracing it now that they see what they can do with it. In terms of it, I've seen even people like develop full-on tokens, NFTs across that with AI as a whole. And something I do really idealize and actually firmly believe is that using Web3 into AI is actually going to be something very important, especially now of AI being able to create like a deep fake. Like right now, I could get like a full video recording of your voice and create a deep fake of you, and nobody would be able to tell the difference. How you can apply Web3 on top of that is basically that validation method, to where it's like, hey, this is you, this is through your wallet, when I know that's you specifically, and you actually verified it from your end. And there's also multiple other people around us that can actually validate that information.
Well expressed, well met, Salman. I need to understand something, how we're designing. You're working over at Meta Designers, and how we're designing this future that we find ourselves in. Are we getting more help that we need when it comes to AI, or is AI being a little bit too more invasive? Do we want the help of AI? Do we not want the help of AI? Do you see this as a value add towards what you're doing? And how might you see it with a hint of what we're building be applicable for wellness?
All right. For this, there are two sides of the coin, of the coin, Christopher. Just like with any other technology. From a creative point of view, I come from the creative industry before going into tech. I'm not a big fan of AI. I consider that it limits the creativity when used rigorously and when relied upon, as it makes a designer's life a lot easier. So that is from a designer's point of view. I'm not a big fan of AI. I like for designers to design the spaces they're getting paid to design, and the spaces that they are commissioned to design for people whom at the end of the day are going to be using these spaces. And it gives us a lot more control over what we're designing and how these dwellings are going to be on the metaverse. Because as you know, if you misdesign a space, you're risking this person going into something I like to call contextual anxiety and isolation. Now, the other way to look at it is from the lens of a disruptive tech professional, a digital transformation specialist would look at it as a pivotal technology in enabling and enhancing and making the design process much easier. We look, for example, at Project Karaoke by Meta. I watched a trailer launched by Meta where Zuckerberg was just sitting alongside someone in their team, and they were saying prompts, and the AI was just generating whatever they were saying inside of the space, and they made a full-blown space within 10 minutes. Thinking about how easy it can become for a user to design a space, that is definitely a huge opportunity. And that is one of the many opportunities of AI. So as I said, there are two sides of the coin.
Even with this rapid rise that we see happening in technology, such as AI, and the rapid adoption, Paul, even with what we see happening, particularly in North America, and in many ways Europe and in Asia and in Africa, I know that we still have a limiting opportunity because we don't have the necessary accessibility that we need. While many of us are enthusiastic, or perhaps not so enthusiastic, about this incoming wave, if you will, tsunami even, of artificial intelligence, Paul, has this technology been made accessible enough from your lens?
No, it has not been. And part of the reason why we sought to have all these headsets behind me is to hand them out here in the continent. And so we give them to the social grassroots leaders because we feel that for the metaverse to make sense in the African continent, then it must make sense to the status quo of the continent, be it social status or even education status. That's the only way we can familiarize this technology to this continent. And so what we do is we figure out the social grassroots leaders. It could be women who are looking at children issues. It could be teachers who are looking at the deficit that is there in the education, system. Because let's be real, microscopes are expensive, very expensive. And some high schoolers have never even looked at a plant cell or an animal cell through a microscope. And so I always say that the teachers in Africa are very creative because they have to be artists first of all. They go to the blackboard and draw a replica of how a cell would look like to a child who is, seated in the classroom. So to supplement that, we take the headset. There is a lot of free resources, even in YouTube VR. We play the video of that plant cell, and the student is immersed in that, in that plant cell, and they can be able to say that I saw a mitochondrion right here in my face. And we believe that it will be a good supplement to what we are lacking in terms of resources in the continent. But what I'm surprised with is the gatekeeping policies that are there in the corporates that are involved in the metaverse industry. Some apps like Horizons, for example, have never been available in Africa. And we are wondering why all the geolocation? Let the accessibility be open to everyone. Let everyone experience what everybody else in the world is experiencing. Let there be no, this is for the West, or this is for the East, or this is not for Africa. And we want those tools unlocked, even for our creators down here, because we have a lot of youth who are willing to step in that metaverse world. Thank you.
I am 100% lockstep and advocacy with you when it comes to that, Paul, because I think it's plain and plumb right. Listen, technology has not arrived until it's arrived for all of us. And I do believe that we're at a severe deficit when we do not have the right type of cultural contribution globally, contributing towards what we see developing and what we see arriving in Web3. Nick, I know that you know a lot about this because you are a traveler. You travel a lot. You build outside of North America. You're building often seeing things from your lens when it comes to the accelerant rise of emerging technologies and some of what is already being expressed now, but also on the other side of it when we talk about wellness. But I also know that of late, and perhaps for even a little bit more time than I even maybe have an appreciation for, that you've been heavily focused on decentralization. What does the marriage pairing of these technologies look like with wellness in the center?
Absolutely. Well, decentralization is a wide one in my world, and I say that because it goes from research, it goes to medical, and then it goes to the actual building of a world where people can actually interact with it, and they can build a world just like Salman was saying with regards to karaoke. There's a world where we can learn from a research study or people doing decentralized research on the other side of the world. And that research can then go into a translational medicine model where people can actually be doing remote patient monitoring at home and then have that research being brought into the home. So decentralization is not only just for the research world where people can actually have a very diverse sample set of people part of their study. Traditionally, studies would be done at a clinical research organization. That organization was in an urban center. And maybe it was multi-site, but it would be in one country or maybe in one continent. And so you're not getting a diverse sample set. And then that translates into the data that goes into the actual product, whether that's a drug or a technology. And so right from the beginning of the funnel, so to speak, you're not getting a diverse sample set. So diversifying and really making it remote so that people can participate from home, can have real world data, whether that's sleep or that's their medication intake or both. This is where we must start the medical journey. And that's really where my company's focused, is really allowing for people to have the technological tools, whether they're the clinical research organization doing the research, or they're the physician trying to learn from that research, or they're the patient or the study participant that's actually being a part of either research or medical. So it is something that is quite transformative, where we can allow for people to be a part of research as well as be treated with medical in a real diversified fashion. So regardless of where you are on the world, on the socioeconomic level, you can actually be a participant and really contribute and actually get value from this new model. So allowing for people to be invited to a study from their home, participate in the study from their home, and then actually benefit from those results from their home. These are things we've never had before. And tools like Web3, AI are going to continue to unlock that. And this is really a betterment for humanity, for research, for the world as a whole, to be able to benefit from research wherever it's happening in the world, and then actually bring it into their world without having to go to an urban center or take a flight or pay a lot of money. So it's truly democratizing the wellness and the research worlds, which is very, very, very exciting.
Thank you, Nick, for sharing that with us. And for all the ones that are just joining us now with GatherVerse.live, and there's quite a few of you, and clearly there is an appetite for wellness when it comes to technology. We're really happy to see this right now. And we also welcome all of you that are at our social platforms as well, be it YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and different various groups. We're happy to have you as well. Chris, I want to understand something from the neurodivergent community, because we talk about accessibility. We don't want to leave any community out. For those that are part of the neurodivergent community, such as myself, help or a hindrance is AI, metaverse, decentralization from your eyes?
Yeah, I think it could be a mix of the two in many ways. There's benefits and potential dangers for, as I alluded to earlier, in terms of AI and the education world, and being able to, and as Salman hinted at earlier, being able to visually understand, represent things, and it could be a potential downfall in terms of like creativity and stripping students of their ability to think critically on really important ideas. So I think it's a great tool in many ways. In my limited exposure to some of it, but you know, I think it's a great tool as resource idea generation and getting the creative juices flowing. But as a tool for research and other things, it may come into a hindrance, be a hindrance in some aspects, because when you're dealing with young people, oftentimes they're going to take the easier path, and especially for neurodivergent students, they're going to, you know, they have a difficulty getting started and like completing tasks and focusing their attention for long periods of time. So if they're struggling, they might take the easy way out. However, at the same time, it might be a great tool for idea generation, getting started, and helping them kind of focus on the key points that get them to the next level. So the way that I see it is another benefit of it would be just like the ability to have relationship building, which is such a key component for a lot of my my clients and my students, and like being able to interact with people from their own comfort zone, and being able to kind of explore their interests. So many of my students are interested in gaming and cryptocurrency and learning so much about like technology, that they're really going to come around to these ideas. And I think the sooner that happens, the better. That we as educators need to kind of take this and carefully analyze it and use it in ways that, you know, help our students and show them the power, like Nick was alluding to. There's so much power in this tool. Like, we can use it for good or we can use it for bad, and I think we have to make the right decisions around that.
Thank you, Chris. Charlene, how do you envision the intersection of Web3, AI, and the metaverse, and the incredible work that you all are doing over at Omniverse?
Well, thank you for asking that question. You know, one of the things that I think I've done that is a little bit more pioneer than the time typically would allow, considering what a huge crossroads we're at with people that are radically adopting technology and people that are radically resisting technology, is I've created a way for people that are still resisting technology to participate in it, even though they don't agree with it, so that they can understand what these tools actually are capable of, and then make a more logical decision about whether they like it or not. I was actually a little reluctant to AI when it first emerged, when that GPT explosion occurred, which is only a few months ago, because I don't really trust anything that comes out that quickly. And that, I mean, it went viral so fast. We were talking about a technology that disrupted Google. Okay. Like, this is one of the largest success stories in history. And I kind of joke and I say Google got punked, which we never thought would ever happen. Right. So this is kind of cool, because that's what decentralization was all about, right? Is like upsetting the apple cart. But the question always is the grass really greener on the other side? And I think we're still learning that question in real time. I think you alluded to something earlier, Christopher, about the connection between AI and the metaverse and gamification and Web3 and crypto and real world and all these different things. And I think that we're imagining these things as silos, but the beauty of Web3 is there really shouldn't be any silos. These are all layers of each of us. We are each individually a metaverse, and there is only one metaverse, obviously, but each of us is going to experience these things and perceive them and process them and use them differently. And I think the magic of this new era is that nobody's going to say, this is the rule book, this is the way it goes. It goes first day. It's not like baking a cake anymore. The whole beauty of this new world and this new toolbox, I mean, I'm a perfect example of this. I should not be here. I should not have built an open world platform on Unreal Engine 5 that's so accessible and easy to use that an optometrist can do it and a crypto bro can do it. That shouldn't exist, but it does. Not because I have the most money in the world, not because I have the biggest investors in the world, because I had a vision and a dream that I believed in, and I used the tools that were available to me in a very unique way. And I think that level of individuality and our ability to express ourselves in a very unique and individual way is it's just a very big opportunity for humanity that I don't think every individual human being has realized yet. But as more humans realize the power they now have, I think the world is going to evolve very quickly. And what you're doing, Christopher, is very important because everybody here has a unique perspective. But what I love about the right way to do Web3 is that you know it's right when people are free to express themselves without ridicule and without criticism, because no one has the right to say that their way is right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong. That's the beauty of this world that we're in now. It's just about, am I being kind? Am I being human? Am I breaking anything? Am I progressing? Those are like some of the metrics that I look at when I determine what's, working or not working.
Thank you for sharing that, Charlene. Javier, every time I go to Twitter, I'm seeing some new technology exploding on the scene. As you've expressed that you're seeing so much that's arriving, and it seems like it went from per week to every day. When I walk here in Silicon Valley, I listen to the different hacker communities that I'm part of, good hacker communities that I'm part of, and they're expressing the things that are breakthrough technologies. And it just seems like the cadence, the tempo of technology has accelerated. Are you seeing similar when it comes to Web3, let's say within the past year?
I would say so, yes. I'm actively, whenever I'm engaging these communities, I see something new and just ever changing across it. Whether it's even like, say, some projects that are bringing even AI as a whole to make it possible for somebody to just make a full, I'd say, even metaverse for some of them, even unique kind of ways to where like people are developing unique documentation across CK snarks, even certain, say, bots out there that actually could help people generate a quick revenue. It's very diverse across it. It's like it's either across AI, it's either across blockchain, but I notice even with the crypto bros out there, they're also testing AI to see how they can actually improve Web3 as a whole. And there's just very unique fundamentals that I've seen being tested across it, to where there's like this one guy, I don't know if you guys have seen that, I think his name is Jared from Subway or something like that, where he's creating these unique bots and he's generating like 50 ETH a day. Other moments I've seen were these group of guys that are just literally in their basement when I went out to Las Vegas maybe about a month ago, and they showed me like what they're doing in terms of building out their own metaverse, and they're using quite a lot of AI across it. And this is all built on top of Unity, and I've just been engaging with them, actively helping them on what they need, providing the tools and even guidance across it. It just, in the Web3 community, I think it's constantly ever changing, even with AI. With the advancement of AI, if anything, it's actually pushing developers, it's pushing creators, it's pushing everybody just to do a lot more across it.
And I'm glad I asked you this question because you're touching on something that's so sensitive and very apropos, whether our communities will want to appreciate the magnitude of actually what you just expressed. That goes hand in hand with something that Solomon, that you brought up when we're talking about spaces and occupying therein. When we talk about the things that Charlene's building and whole entire communities. When we talk about democratized access that we talked about in our last panel, Nick. Solomon, one of the things that are my concern is we're heading, I believe, into an animate economy. I believe that we're heading into a place in time where there's so much democratized utility of access that we're able to create these virtual worlds based on our own imaginations, and to be able to easily render out these virtual existences. And when we talk about the functioning role of Web3, that will have a, if you will, a layer one chain. It could be Lamina 1 or whoever else is building in the work of blockchain layer 1 systems, to where we'll have a layer 1 chain that creates a whole financial interchange of buy, sell, and trade, if you will, that's data time-stamped of crypto assets or meme coins, altcoins, and perhaps even converted fiat into digital currencies, where these communities have the capability to be self-sustaining, to where I am able to build a virtual world within the metaverse, an open world, interoperable, and I'm also able to do financial transactions, to be able to have real-time commodity access when I am operating with this individual virtual world. We've become more virtual in the past 32 months than we have the past 32 years, and we know that we're not going back. Solomon, are we moving too fast? Because there are many that make the argument today that we are moving too fast. There are some that say we're on a right pace. And then there's the few people such as myself that believes that we aren't moving fast enough. Solomon, we're going to be occupying spaces virtually. We already are. Wellness is a dramatic concern about what happens in these spaces, especially for our young people. Are we moving too fast right now?
All right. Now, if I did get you right, because my internet connection did go out for a bit.
Can somebody get Solomon some Starlink over here, please?
We need that in Lebanon. We need that. We are moving too fast, in my opinion, with AI specifically, because when you're talking about 2,000 platforms last week alone, and the week before it, and the week before it, and there's so many platforms coming out that we don't know much of the implications of. It causes some concern. And in my opinion, this is not something I like for Web3, but I like it for AI, is moderate regulation. Just so that we could, get control off of these algorithms that are learning at much faster pace than humans, that are much more intelligent than humans, and have more access at one given second to information than any human on this planet. So I believe AI should be monitored. Now, when we talk about Web3 and the metaverse, on the other hand, I believe we are not moving fast enough. There is a lot that has been done and a lot that should be done for us to achieve a more accessible, more interoperable, more efficient state of the metaverse. But that is mostly attributed to the fact that most people in the metaverse are still getting their idea of what the metaverse should be. So once we reach a full understanding of what we want Web3 to look like, what we want the metaverse to look like, how we want everything to shape up, that's when we can start moving at the pace that you would want and that everyone would want.
Thank you for sharing that, Solomon. To our audience that are joining us at GatherVerse.live, we're so happy to have you. Thanks for leaping in. We're sitting here talking about the intersection of decentralization, Web3, the metaverse, AI, and wellness. It's very interesting to hear from the diverse opinions that are here. We welcome and celebrate them all. We don't shun them, even when there is a bit of a contrast. I know for myself, speaking for myself, that I don't believe that we're moving fast enough. But that's from a lens of a hardcore technologist and someone that's been in this space for a very long time. I particularly like to stay ahead of the technology. I don't want to see the world where the technology has become more advanced than technologists, but I believe also that ship may have already sailed based on what we just heard from Solomon just express some 2,000 platforms coming out a week. Javier, we're seeing the explosion of Web3 and new AI devices and platforms that are arriving to our shores by way of Twitter and LinkedIn and what we're seeing with that. Chris, is it moving too fast for those that are working and trying to make sense of this technology to help others under the banner of wellness?
I think it is moving a little too quickly, first, especially the education world. And I think that, if your expertise is in education, you may not have the same kind of ideas or understanding of this technology that you do in your content areas. And specifically for the neurodivergent community, I think it, once again, it's a little bit of a blurred line, but when it comes down to it, if there are ways we can use it to motivate, to get people to act and have some sort of control over the situations, then I think it can be harnessed. So it's moving quickly, but I think everything moves quickly these days, and we have to kind of adapt and we have to change. We have to be able to use the resources at our fingertips to find ways to be active participants in the world. Like I said before, creating relationships, exploring interests, exploring ideas, and going further with things than you may have, with the technology that you have at hand.
Do you welcome the idea of having AI be a firm assistant to you, possibly, won't say taking over from what you do? I for the audience, I don't believe that AI will completely replace every single existing job, but I believe that your practitioner of whatever vertical that you operate in that uses AI will replace you if you don't. I believe that's the world. Do you embrace artificial intelligence, Chris, to be able to help you move forward in what you do in education?
I think I do embrace it in some ways, and in other ways I reject it. But I think the ways that I accept it, it's where they're being used in the right ways. But and a perfect example in which I reject it is there are students who are using it to write papers and to basically take the place of using their own intellectual capacity to critically think. And I think that's a huge danger. But there are aspects of it that I do embrace. One other student of mine has wrote his senior project for his university on using gaming as an exploration of sharing ideas in a philosophical space and exchanging and coming up with a framework for using games in the right ways and using the technology to kind of move forward in these philosophical ideas. But that can be used in a lot of different areas of education. But I think there's not enough people maybe working on these kinds of things in this area. And that's why it might be moving too fast. And we're not caught up with that yet. I know there's a lot of work being done in the gamification world in education, but I feel like to the typical student that I come across, there's very little interaction with this type of technology unless they have their own specific self-interest in that topic and have done significant self-study in that area.
Wonderful. And we appreciate your lens for sharing on that when it comes to education. On the topic, audience, we're talking about whether this technology is moving fast enough or maybe it's going too slow. But Paul, for some realities, it's just not moving at all. It's just not going anywhere. Let me ask you something, Paul. Let's say hypothetically in this very possible reality that all the technology arrives to the shores of the beautiful continent that we know as Africa. Does it bring a value add to Africa? Does it bring wellness to Africa, unlike anything that we've ever seen with your involvement and what you have had the opportunity when it comes to having your experiences of these technologies?
And, that's why we are pioneering this shipment of all these headsets to Africa, because we believe that technology should be decentralized from particular regions and be brought actually here where it is needed most. Let the people choose which technology they want to use. If we are still stuck riding bicycles, how long would it take me to travel all the way to the coast to get the headsets to Nairobi? So let it come and let those who are willing to use it. And we are still aware, down here, that there are people who in the West who actually have not embraced VR and its technologies. And the same thing is what will happen even here in Africa. Let those who are going to embrace VR embrace it, and those who want to use it, let them use it. Let those who want to embrace Web 3.0 and AI, ChatGPT has actually been used a lot here. When Bard came out by Google, I called my associate in the US and told him, hey, there's a new AI that is out. And I'm the one who had to brief him that is, there's actually something else that is out. So let it come. Let us use it if we so well wish. And we believe that technology can be used also in the social growth, social mental growth. And not just that, when we created an event in the metaverse and started talking about Africa, people came to those events. And one thing that they were interested in is the secondary point of view from what the mainstream media has been telling them. If I didn't have that technology, how would I have spoken about who I am as an African rather than what CNN and Fox, anyone out there want to depict me? So this is what you're talking about. Let the technology come. Let us use it anyhow we want to use it. It will not be used in the same way by everybody. I liked Chavin's comment that there is individuality in technology. How I use VR is not how a digital creator would use VR. So let it come. Then we can take it up from there.
I'm enjoying this conversation so much, and thank you, Paul, for your expressions. And here's why. Listen, GatherVerse isn't going to be the platform that tells you about the new headset, the HMD. We let our friends at AWE and other platforms talk about that. We're not going to be the ones to tell you about the latest microchip and regenerative pre-trained transformer. That's not what we're about. We're talking about what happens when you don't have access, or when you do have access to this technology, what that means to humanity, human betterment, and sustainability. Really powerful points made and expressed so far. But Nick, I need to make sense of this on a widespread view. What are we doing here today? We know that all these people are sitting here at GatherVerse.live and our other social platforms. We know that there's a real concern when we talk about wellness in this world. And every continent has its own fair shares of ideals of wellness and confrontation. Mass shootings, teen suicides, poverty, depression. It's all over and in specific different locations and places. But on the other hand, we're seeing this explosion of technology. That what we are seeing, whether it's from Chris's lens as an education practitioner, or whether it's from Charlene as an entrepreneur and founder, as someone that's also a practitioner in dealing with optics, if you will, we're seeing all of these tools prospectively. Let's say even a percentage of the 2,000 new technology platforms that are arriving every week that Solomon made mention of and that Javier is seeing. Even on a modical level, a percentage of these technologies can be helpful towards sustaining humanity. Nick, help me to make sense of this. Is this going to be a benefit of this explosion, this renaissance of innovation? Can this ultimately be a game change for wellness as a whole in this world?
Absolutely. I think it can be. I think it's a rallying cry. I think it's something that people have been waiting for. I think it's an inevitability in one way. And if you look at sci-fi over the last few decades, I mean, it has converged to what we all thought we would have. We almost have flying cars, but we have the tricorder now, and it will continue to become smarter. And what we need to do, and this is the scary part, is impart ethics and impart empathy. And it's very difficult because we're trying to take the Web 2 and the traditional 20th century way of doing things and really plonk it onto this very expansive thing called AI that is moving faster than any other technology ever has. Now, it's just the traditional way of looking at things, and until there's a better way, then that's what the powers that be, let's call them, will do. But how do we make sure that there is empathy and EI, emotional intelligence, built in, baked in, and really at the foundational level of these technologies? Because wellness requires bedside manner, as they call it in the medical world. And that bedside manner is emotional intelligence. And if you have a technology that doesn't have that at the base level, or it's not required, or for whatever reason it wasn't built in by the creators of the system, then you don't have what makes us human in a way. And emotions makes us human, and real empathy makes us human. And it is a driver of a lot of things that we do. It's not just money that makes us want to create things. It's the empathy for our fellow man, fellow woman, ourselves, that really drives us to do the things we do every day. So we have an opportunity. We have a technology that really brings us together. It's something that is very democratized. It does not require you to have a GPU now. You can do it online like a lot of people have been doing through their browser. We need to maintain that accessibility. I think that's number one. The potential for regulatory capture by some of the providers who are ahead of the game, let's say it, where they say, okay, we've got to where we are, and now if you want to create your own LLM, or your own AI, you need to go through a set of criteria that could actually end up being, an effect to the democratization, where only those who have the money and the legal access to be able to go through those hoops will be able to have these AIs. So we're in a very, very exciting time, but a very potentially, anxiety creating time, where people aren't sure about their jobs. They're not sure about how these things are made. They're not sure about if there's biases built into them. And all of these things need to be figured out. It's very difficult to see where that'll go, and that's the beauty of humans. We will figure it out, and obviously with the help of AI and technology. But this is a transformative time. There's no doubt about that, and we need to see that from all aspects, whether it's the medical aspect or it's the educational aspect, or if it's right on the creator side of things. We really need to embrace this technology because it is a gift in a way, and it will transform humanity. But we need to make sure that ethics and emotional intelligence is within that, because otherwise we won't have what truly makes us human, which is that collaborative nature that's really in our subconscious and in the base being of ourselves.
With GatherVerse, we wholeheartedly agree about the necessary look at ethics. We have a summit that's dedicated next month, actually, called Ethical. We hope that all of you will join us when it comes to these expressions and more. Charlene, I need you, and thank you, Nick. Charlene, I need you to speak to the innovators of the world. We've been talking a lot about innovation. I need you to speak to the innovators of the world. Salman, I'll need you to talk about the innovators of the world while we wrap up here. What do I mean by this? Because bear with me real quick, Charlene. I kind of want to lean in. Audience, I want you to lean in with us for a moment, because we're talking about the innovators, not just innovation. Might we be more concerned for those that build these technologies rather than the technologies that they build? What is it to be a founder in today's world where you're up against the massive and mighty juggernauts of Meta? What is it to say that you want to come out there and compete and build your own platform with these democratized tools? But you have to go up against such a mighty, massive hill. How can you compete with a finite, limited budget against a multi-manifold billion-dollar infrastructure? But you know that your culture and contribution that you have to give is just as incredible. I'm talking about the wellness of innovators. Charlene, talk to them about the perseverance of what it takes to be able to innovate in today's climate.
Oh my goodness. And there were so many great points shared that I just wanted to chime in on. So I'll do like a speed dating kind of wrap up. Number one, we're talking about, are we at the right time? I believe in divine timing. God put every single human being, whoever you define God to be, in this very specific time in life. And aren't we privileged that we get to drive the future? Because this is a pivotal point in human history too. Let's think about human to human interactions above all else, because that's what we're creating here, is a place for humans to continue to interact. And getting to meet someone like Paul in Africa wasn't possible in the physical world. It is possible now in the virtual world. And thank God that this globalization can occur, because we really need to understand the cultural diversities. 3, I did not have money when I built this. That was the one currency I didn't have the luxury of having, but I wanted to build this badly enough, not because I wanted to make money. That wasn't what this was about. Obviously, I want to provide a great future for my family. That's important. I am not a philanthropist. I am going to make money from this platform, but that wasn't the reason I built it. I built it because I have children. They need to see. Our world needs to have a visual sustainability, and the centralized owners of the centralized ecosystem that decides who gets to see and who doesn't get to see had created such a disintegrating ecosystem. They themselves are trying to figure out a better way to reaffirm it. So my currencies are community, kindness, authenticity, hard freaking work. These are currencies that you have. Forget about crypto as an alternate currency. It's great. I don't understand it. I don't use it. I use other alternative currencies like kindness, humanity, being able to actually continue to embrace my community. There are beautiful people that I've met who have said, look, you may not have the money, but you need guidance. You need strength. I'm going to cry. I'm going to be there for you. And that has taken me that one little step further. You have got to keep your eye on the prize. If you really believe in something, don't let anything get in your way. The moment you're about to give up, that's a gift. That is the sign that you are about to hit the next level. It's the moment to push through. That's my advice. You're muted, Chris.
Christopher, you're muted.
Forgive me. You know, we never have enough time, do we? Time is so fleeting with all these expressions. I have dozens more questions for you, but we find ourselves absent of a thing that we never get back again. I want to say with the heartfelt expression, of all the places you could have been today, you decided from your hearts to share, to be with us. This is your community just as much as anyone else's. We do value you, Salman, Chris, Nick, Javier, Paul, and Charlene. We welcome you to come back with us again in future summits that we're going to hold. We hope that you'll stay with us as we continue to move forward towards the conclusion of this Day 2 summit. Audience, thank you for joining with us. It's been rather informative. We'll meet again. Be well.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Go ahead.
We're back once again. We have a very special panel. We wanted to understand outside of what we typically look at when we think about technology, and we wanted to put more of a focus and emphasis on the practitioners, but not just practitioners, those that are doing and creating and building in this new virtual ecosystem of interaction and communication that we abide in. A kaleidoscope of experts and talent, and from those that have been building and have honed in on their craft of what they care about so much. They're here to join us today, and we're happy to have them each. All of our speakers, we welcome you. We ask that you mute your mics while we have you, and as we summons you here, we bring you on. And what we're going to do is we're going to introduce each of you. And we're going to start with Harrison and move forward. Introduce and please share with the audience who you are and what you do and what you're working on and the relatability towards wellness. Harrison, we welcome you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope you can all hear me well. Just nod your heads if you can. That way I know. Okay, good. So my name's Harrison Kramer, and I'm a virtual magician. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, magicians all over the world were like, what are we going to do? This is the weirdest thing. We can't leave our houses. All of our events are canceled. And it turned out that magic, especially interactive magic, worked really well on Zoom. So I made a page about it on my website. I started getting hundreds and even thousands of inquiries. And I've done about 2,000 virtual events over the past 3 years and kind of really developed my own little thing that I do on Zoom with anything from, one group of people or one person or a group of people in one room all the way up to, thousands of people all over the world. So now in kind of a post-pandemic view, I am 100% a virtual magician. I focus on this because I did so many shows. I've seen the power of what's possible. So I'm now taking the concepts that I've discovered with virtual magic and the amazing use cases that it has, and I'm kind of sort of crafting them to apply to a post-pandemic world where people can really utilize the values of virtual magic beyond the need to entertain people in a virtual space for a pre-planned meeting. So that's what I'm doing here today. Just came to sort of learn from all of you and talk to you all about sort of what I do and then why I think it's so unique. And really, my programs are all about, well-being and wellness. What I'm able to do is bring together any group of people, no matter the size, no matter their interests, even no matter the language that they speak, and definitely not no matter the location. And I can do sort of this general purpose social event that allows everybody to laugh and have fun and feel together in that moment. So that's sort of what I've created. And I'm looking forward to learning from the rest of you.
Thank you, Harrison. We welcome you. Jesper, we welcome you here to WellVerse Day 2. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm Jasper, so I do personal training where I help my clients live a more healthier life and what we can say be more functional throughout the day. So I focus more on performance, help with flexibility, mobility, and overall strength, and also diet and nutrition, where I'm currently writing a book about more like food and diet, everything I wish I knew before going into living a more healthy life. And in my work, I try to break everything down into universal principles that you can use anywhere in the world at any given time. And I'm also part of a startup where we are working with the arts, how we can use art as a therapy tool to improve your well-being and a social emotional state. Yeah.
Thank you, Jesper. We welcome you. Bobby, we welcome you, and we're happy to see you here at WellVerse.
Hello, how are you? Appreciate it. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Bobby Khalil, I'm the Director of Performance at the Spire Academy and the managing member of a software platform and app called Bodies Done Right. And for about 22 years now, I've been someone who's loved wellness. From being a massage therapist to degrees in exercise science, I've kind of created a philosophy where you combine the holistic approach of health and wellness coupled with the scientific approach that has already been proven. And I try to mix it all into a nice little ball that, hopefully can provide, support to help someone reach their potential from mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, nutritionally, spiritually, whatever level, by getting to know the individual, by getting to understand them at a deeper level. In turn, I just received our 12th patent while we are in the process of designing a platform to support this. It utilizes avatar technology and AI. It's very new in a way that's going to capture individuals' information via assessments, healthcare records, all the way through physical assessments. And it's then going to provide an avatar-driven program that can be dictated by any Bluetooth-enabled device. And so we're in the process of helping and hopefully growing this solution that is going to be able to support different populations of people based on their disease state, based on their health state, athletic level or not, and provide them a tool, a lifestyle management tool that they can kind of take with them and be guided by this avatar.
Terrific. And Bobby, we welcome you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Tyron Walsh, we welcome you here to WellVerse. Tell us who you are and what you do, sir. Your mic, sir. I guess we still need you to unmute it.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Absolutely. Welcome.
Right. I must be the last person into the out of the Stone Age to the Silicon Age. And as I say, never work with dogs or people or children, is it? Right. So, right. I will start, if I can find the connection. There we are. Are we good? Can you hear me?
We hear you well. We did for a moment.
Right. You do again, do you?
You're good.
Lovely. Okay. Right. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a different magic trick which happened about 27,000 years ago. And everything that's happening today with ChatGTP, the conferences and everything, owe a debt to this magic trick that happened between 27,000 years ago and 40,000 years ago. And it was when the Stone Age man trained a wolf. And before that, humans were, or the humanoid life form was nomadic. And it would go from A to B to C. always in fear of predators. And then somebody noticed that if you keep food about 50 meters away from the cave, the wolves will come in, but they'll stop. And then suddenly you've got a security blanket around the cave, meaning you don't need to move along anymore. And that was the beginning of settlements, the start of the agricultural age, the beginning of the industrial age, where we are today with ChatGPT and the digital age. And it's like we've come full circle, because every laptop that anybody is using to watch this is dependent on silicon, which is partly stone. So we really are in part 2.0 of the Stone Age revolution. And the Dog Internet is basically trying to recreate that first bond between man and animal. And we are using both the ancient Stone Age way of looking at relationships, and we're also looking at the silicon world, because we have put together an ebook which enables children to understand how you manage a dog. We've created an online course to help every volunteer in the world who's thinking of working with a rescue shelter. And that course is free to every volunteer and rescue shelter worker anywhere in the world. And we're also working on the VR and AR technologies to bring the dog, not just how you manage a dog in your life, but to bring it center stage. Okay, Daisy, say hello to everyone.
We welcome both of you, Kieran, and thank you for sharing that with us. Audience, today we're talking about pets, magic in the human body. While it may seem very unconventional, this type of panel, it is rather appropriate when we start to delve into what we're about to touch on when we look at how wellness in this present digital hybrid age has transitioned. I must ask, in particular, Bobby and Jesper. Bobby, we'll start with you. How has this new arena of work that we've entered into transformed your way of thinking when it comes to the uptake and the upkeep of the human body itself? What has changed, and has it been a value add towards the work that you do, both the technology and the practice of wellness?
Great question. I think it's helped. I think in a lot of ways, what you get to see now is, if you look at it back in the day, you had a lot of people trying to prove their model. And it was sometimes hard to expand on that. It was sometimes hard to share your philosophy or your thoughts. And you were stuck in a population where, maybe there was closed-minded people. Maybe you were stuck with a population who, said what you had or what you were doing was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but you had a select group. Well, now, if you look at where technology is going and you look at really how, people are using it now from a wellness perspective, you could learn a heck of a lot from a lot of different groups and how to take care of your body based on the limitations you may have, or some of the setbacks, or even the fact that you may live in a rural area and you don't have gyms and you don't have places to go. You could find support and programming, not just from exercising, but from mental training to all that, where you may have been getting bad advice or not even any advice. And now there's an opportunity to really take full advantage of that.
As a founder, as a bit of echo, we'll mute you, Mike. Okay, thank you, Bobby, and for sharing that. It leads on to my next question with you, Jesper. As someone that personally is a founder of technology, and there are quite literally perhaps hundreds of thousands of us in this world that are innovating from our homes and from desktops and laptops, if you will, Jesper, how much more important has it become in this hybrid workforce where it's not just founders or innovators, if you will, entrepreneurs, but it's whole entire companies and corporations? How much more has wellness become prevalent to be able to reach from HR to those that are working in their homes? What does that look like for your lens? And Harrison, we're about to arrive with a same question for you.
Yeah, so what it caused is that we sit longer during the day, which can both tighten up, for example, our glutes, our hamstring, and cause a problem like back pain. So it's become more important that after a long day or during the day, that we make sure that we move around, get our bodies going, as that's what we have been used to for decades and the entire evolution of humans. But you can also see, if from an XR perspective, if you are able as a company to take care of your employees, that might result in they have less sick day, and if they are less sick day, then you have a stronger workforce, and you can maybe start produce more as a company. You can produce more value.
Is technology encouraging us to move more, or is it not encouraging us and it's actually prompting us to move less?
I would say it's both. Uh, so the technology, when it don't encourage us to move more, is when we have to work in front of a computer. But you can also have, for example, technologies like Whoop Strap, where it helps track your calorie burn, how many steps you have done, and you can join these like small teams with small community where you can compete against each other, and then you will be forced to, oh, I need to move more than this person so I can become number one in this week.
From your expert perspective, do you believe that everyone that works in a hybrid economy now, to some degree more or less, that works from their homes, should have some type of smart device to keep them more aware of their health and tracking throughout the day?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it very depends on the person. I, for example, spoke to a person where he needs something that where he can track how well he's doing, because in that way he can push himself and continuously going. And some don't need it and can just with their mind push themselves to, okay, now I have to get up and start moving.
I believe we now live in a world where it's necessary for us to have as much access to utility for building and innovating, and making sure that we're using the self-same technologies within the parameter of sustainability. Really important, because we cannot innovate if we don't have health. But on a different note, thank you, Jesper, for sharing that. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Harrison, you're bringing a different narrative to our lives and to our realities when it comes to happiness, and it comes to joy, and it comes to actually seeing things that we untraditionally do not see. But your work is very different, but I find it rather apropos and interesting in this new present time that we've become more virtual in the past 33 months than the past 33 years. Tell us about this path journey that you've arrived to. And I must ask, are emerging technologies helping to get you more connected to those that have been a beneficiary of participating with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll sort of just give a brief overview of sort of how I got here. I was a magician, and then COVID happened, and I started immediately using Zoom for clients who reached out and said, oh, we're on Zoom. Can you do it on Zoom? So it wasn't like, oh, I have to now make a Zoom show that I can present to these big corporate clients. It was just like, do it now. We need it tomorrow. So I really started using Zoom just with the main, controls that were there. And what I've found is that over the past 3 years, while I have, added more and more technology that helps me do certain things that I want, I find that the technology in a lot of cases gets in the way of what I'm trying to do, because, having everybody type in the chat and having it appear on the screen, like that's great for like the use case that you want to use it for, but that does not make the meeting more engaging or more fun. It just makes it maybe more visually interesting, or maybe it's not done very well and it's not visually interesting. So what I sort of immediately realized, and this is sort of a note that I think will maybe hit home for a lot of you, is especially in the video conferencing setting, which is what I'm talking about, not necessarily like metaverse, I'm not sure how to describe it, but video conferencing setting, I immediately started to think of these calls like a room. So as opposed to like me having a stage over here and I bring in Jesper on my stage and I have an interaction with him and we do some magic, it was much more like this Zoom meeting is a room, And now I'm in a spotlight Jesper. And by spotlighting him, it's almost like we're turning everybody's attention in the room to Jesper. And then I can spotlight Bobby, and everybody's attention is turning to Bobby. And then I bring it back to me. So now instead of having everybody look straight at the screen and having me bring Bobby and Jesper up on stage, it's more like I've shifted everybody's attention around the room. And I feel like more than any sort of sophisticated technology or OBS or plugins or all these things that people use, what's much more important for me, at least in my work, is to be able to act like we're all in a room together and use my voice and the way that I perform and the framing of who I'm talking to and when I talk to them and when I bring it back to me and the pacing of all of that, which is what makes my whole thing sort of come together. So I've found that, you know, the technology in its most basic form is really what I utilize. And then anything beyond that is great and it's amazing and it exists. And I sometimes pull in some of it, but it really doesn't help me in what I'm trying to do.
What an interesting consideration, Harrison, when we're thinking about the attention and mind spans of people, the attention spans of how we communicate. It's become manifold. And I believe as technologists, we're building these platforms, but we've not yet even scratched the surface to understand how what we build will be interacted by many people outside of our very limited and finite verticals of what we operate in as innovators. Kyron, I have to ask, because you are probably, between you and Harrison, probably the most different types of guests that we've ever had within a GatherVerse, far from what we're used to having, but we think it's rather appropriate. And when we came across your application, we welcomed you. The relationship between human and pet, the relatability between a pal, a friend. Can you speak to the nativity of that? Can you help us to understand why these relationships are so important, especially in this virtual working world that we find ourselves in? Your mic, sir.
Right, sorry. Are we back?
You're back.
Christopher, lovely. That's a very big question, and I think it goes back to the premise of wellness. Without stability, nothing happens. And the beauty of having a relationship with an animal is you can practice day by day and hour by hour how to bring stability into your life. And think about it very simply. When you go out for a walk with a dog, what dogs will do is they'll sniff everywhere, and then a few seconds later they'll look around to see if you're behind them. They check in. So they're checking into that relationship. Can they trust you to keep an eye on them a certain distance? And what I find in today's modern world, where everybody has their mobile phone, it's like quite often the rest of the world doesn't exist. Just something 2 or 3 inches. And to put this in a practical perspective, I was talking with a football coach yesterday, and he said the biggest problem with a lot of young children now is their visuals are gone because they can't judge the distance of the ball moving to them. Anything that's beyond 1 or 2 feet, and they're in trouble. So having a pet in your life basically brings you back to the original human-animal bond. And the beauty here is you could always ask yourself day by day, is this dog or this cat in my life being treated well enough? Could I do anything better? And that's the perfect reflection of asking yourself, is my relationship with myself up to scratch? So if I can think of 5 or 6 things that I could actually do to improve my dog's emotional health, physical health, veterinary health, well, then there must be a few things that I can actually do for myself. But we're probably blocked by our own ego to even dare criticize ourselves. So with that, I would say, if you have a dog in your life, look at it differently and ask, how can this make a better world for both of us?
I see. Thank you for sharing that with us, Karen. It's emotionally felt and well expressed. When we think about, let me see. No, I'm not talking to you. Smart assistants could be so invasive, can't they? We can only imagine how much more this will be increasing as we move forward. Bobby, I've been hiking the French Alps, the Austrian Alps, exploring, if you will, the Julian Alps, the Dolomites, the Swiss Alps in Europe. It's been incredible getting away from my screen. It's been powerful moving around again in that fashion. I haven't done that in some time. I think about the world of body shaming. I think about the world of how people look, how we're interpreted socially when we stand and look at an image. This world of visual manipulation and artistic manipulation, because we're not comfortable with how our bodies are. We're not there yet. Some of us are far from it. We know that we're sometimes more sedentary than we need to be, than we ought to be. It's a very uncomfortable discussion. But some of the way that we go about it, overall, is just not healthy. And we want to be healthier when we're working, when we're innovating, when we're building. I believe, like I know that you do, that it produces better results. But Bobby, help me to understand and help us to understand something here. The magnitude of what you do when it comes to building these vessels, these bodies, keeping us strong in these particular times. I really want you to express to us, because we're not used to hearing this as much, and we need to hear it. Why is this so important, especially now with all these technologies that are coming to help us, assist us, guide us, work with us, these tools, and it's keeping us from doing more and doing less? Why is it now so important for wellness, physical wellness of the body, for us to be paying more attention to this reality?
It's important for a variety of reasons. I mean, from scientific to, you know, and activities of daily living being, better, and you're able to adapt and do more, to the positive endorphins that are released, to the bone density that you carry, to the diseases that you can get rid of or at least fight. The list goes on. From a mindset to how you carry yourself and how you believe yourself, how you feel with the person looking back at you. There's so many more positive endorphins that are released when you incorporate exercise. The problem is a lot, and I teach about this a lot, is, people don't know what to do, when to do, or how to do it. And so there's 1,000 voices coming at them all the time. There's 1,000 things, because they're stuck on their phones looking at every Instagram post or Facebook post and looking like this, and you can do this, and you can take this pill. And if you just rub your butt this way, you're going to be that much stronger here. And like all these little things that just blow my mind. But again, I respect where technology is going. Okay, so I'm not lessening it. However, it's what you're allowing yourself to be influenced with. That influence now is causing you to make decisions that are probably uncharacteristic of you, or are giving you an easy way out because of maybe some habits you may have that aren't right. And so it's simple. I teach people I call it the REC principle. I created: recognize, educate, and consistency. You got to be open to recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, so you can figure out how yourself, so you can fix those weaknesses and keep your strength strong. And you have to become consistent with it. And by doing that, what it allows you to do is to take small little steps towards growth, from exercise to movement to being more pain-free, to maybe just making your body look a little better. How about just breathing better so you can run with your grandkids versus or climbing a mountain? What about just climbing up 3 flights of stairs? So it's a matter of, again, what are you allowing yourself to be influenced with? Are you able to recognize and listen to your strengths and your weaknesses, and drop your pride and ego and just want to learn, utilize technology for what it's there for, to give you the input? It's okay to hear that you've only walked 2,000 steps today and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's okay you should want to know that. So you desire to go out and get another 8,000 steps, for example. It's fine. That's what you should want and desire to hear. The problem is people want to run from that. And then they get ashamed, and then the demons come in their brain, and then and it's a downhill avalanche effect. And so it's unfortunate. But I think if we just started with what we're allowing ourselves to be influenced with, what type of love, what type of character, what type of support, what type of positive mindset stuff you listen to and do, I think then things will change.
How do we make that person?
It's looking in the mirror and being honest with some of the weaknesses that you do have. It's being honest with yourself, and then it's simple. The technology is there. Go online. If you don't have the money, go online and look and research, and don't just get the Google ads that come up or this. Find and desire to find what it is that you want to try to accomplish. Again, and that's cost you nothing to do. It might take some time, or if you're blessed, be able to go talk to someone that's going to be honest with you, and forthright, and not someone that's just going to, again, tell you what you want to hear.
It's a difficult prospect, Bobby, but a necessary one, isn't it? I sit here and listen to you, and I hope that it doesn't go in one ear out the other, that even those that are actively engaged in healthy and lifestyle can benefit with a little bit of reminder, if you will, about how precious and finite time is, and that we really truly only have a little bit of time to sojourn, if you will, in life to do these things. You talked about running with our grandchildren. Some of us don't even have grandchildren or children yet, but to be able to do these things, to simply enjoy a little bit more time healthy as we continue to move forward. We must keep that in mind, audience, don't we? Those that come to us from GatherVerse.live, we still see all of you there. And those that are sitting with us, whether on LinkedIn or YouTube or on Facebook, Twitter, you're with us. And we know that you're here on this subject of wellness because we know how important it is to you and how important it is to this GatherVerse community. And Harrison, we switch over to you because I'm sitting here thinking about not just the fact that you're a virtual musician, which is something I've never heard of before, but I admire from afar the courage of what it takes to do this and to follow your heart. Consider that consideration as entrepreneurs, as those that go into the gig economy boldly into the night, contractors, if you will, to go for what's not conventional, working in a platform. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't take away from that. But tell us a little bit about, has this move, this transition to become a virtual musician made you happier?
I mean, it's hard to say. I had a daughter right at the beginning of the pandemic, so really, like, nothing even compares to the happiness of that. So I can't really say. What I would say is that before the pandemic, I was working to be good at my craft. But at the same time, there's lots of other people who are working to be good at my craft, and with objectively, were just better than me in every way as far as their ability to do the craft and their creativity and their perseverance and like all this stuff. And then what happened with virtual magic, I'm not sure why, is because I ended up doing it so much, I actually had this knowledge base that was beyond what. It didn't matter how successful you were in magic before the pandemic. Not that this is about success, but it didn't matter like how high of a level on the magician's scale, whatever it may be that you were. You hadn't done as many Zoom calls as me, and that sort of gave me this ability to now finally in magic have something where I truly felt like, not necessarily that I was an authority, but I felt like I had something like really under my belt where I was able to like say like, no, I've done this a lot. Like I know what can go wrong. Like you can theoretically talk about it, but I can maybe not as intricately as what you're doing over there, but I can actually do it. I've done it and I've been there and I've done it over and over again and I've learned from my mistakes. And so I would say that I'm definitely more fulfilled in that I don't really have anybody chasing me. I don't have very many people who are trying to do the same thing that I'm doing, because as a magician, you have to imagine that you spent your whole life trying to learn this like pretty difficult skill set. And then you're like, okay, well, throw all that out and do it on Zoom where you can't touch anybody and nobody can touch you. And if you hold something up on the screen, they're going to think it's fake, So it's like most magicians, like, they did virtual when it was a thing, but then they said, now this is not what I'm about. This is not what I like. So they went back to their lives. But for me, because I had such a positive experience, having so many people come to me for this thing and being able to learn so much by doing it so often, now it's the only thing that I think about when it comes to magic. I don't need to be able to place something in your hand. I'm not even thinking about that kind of magic. I'm thinking about how can we do something without placing anything in anybody's hands? How can we do something for the people who have their cameras off, who are at home, who are on the live stream? You know, it's like I really try and focus on this thing, and it gives me happiness and I guess pride to think that there's very few other people in the world who are thinking about this very specific thing that I'm thinking about. And that sort of gives me the determination to say, like, I know there's something here beyond what I've already created, and I'm going to go out there and find it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. So I think that makes me happy. But as far as like general happiness, I mean, I'm always a pretty happy guy, and all of this could be thrown away in an instant, you know, if my daughter got sick or God forbid something like that. So really it's just like I'm just along for the ride.
Thank you for sharing that, Harrison. Really heartfelt. We really appreciate those expressions, and congratulations on the arrival of your child. Jesper, I'm leaning over to you because I want to better understand the present mindset from the personal trainer lens in this world. Has the arrival of these technologies that we're seeing with generative pre-trained transformers and technologies such as the metaverse and the usage of headsets and more, has it made your work easier? Has it made it more difficult? Is this a good time to be a personal trainer from your lens?
You can say it is a great time because you can now reach more people than ever. I can reach people all over the globe. I can jump into the metaverse with a headset. We bang out some push-ups together. I can meet you in the local park here in my hometown. So as we expand more technology and the world becomes more and more connected, one thing is I can reach way more people, and I can help way more people, but I can also help people in way more different ways. So if you jump in, let's take the metaverse example. If you jump into the metaverse, you, instead of we maybe doing push-ups and sit-ups on our floor with a headset, then we maybe play some basketball or do some boxing in the metaverse to make it a bit more fun and more playful, so it becomes more enjoyable to do.
Thank you for sharing, Jesper. We appreciate that. Kyron, I have to ask you, and let's unmute your mic while I'm asking this question, but I want to ask you something. Is the time that we're spending in the metaverse and virtual technologies as a whole, digitally, is it taking away from our time with our friends, our loved ones, and even our pets, whom many of us consider our families that are part of our lives? Is it disruptive towards these type of traditional norms and structures? Or are you seeing that these technologies could be a benefit to enhance the value of the relationships that we hold in our households and communities?
Well, what I've seen over the last few years is that it has polarized the good and the bad to the extreme. Now, very quickly on the bad, what I've seen time and time again is people who saw something on television or saw something on YouTube from a dog trainer. And keep in mind, dog training in most countries is not a regulated profession. That, Chris, if you wanted in the morning in many countries in Europe to say you were a dog trainer, you could actually get, believe it or not, indemnity insurance, and off you go. So unfortunately, the amount of very poor quality advice, so-called advice on the internet is disgraceful, and it's quite dangerous. Then the second big negative factor is the puppy mills or intensive puppy farming has never been more profitable than it is today, because most of these mafia gangs are very good at their digital work. And to give you a very simple example, the European Parliament commissioned a report in 2018. This was before COVID hit. And they estimated that puppy mill farming was the third most lucrative form of organized crime in Europe. Now, in the USA, the puppy mill industry is probably worth about 1.5 billion. And the total spend on dog facilities, let's say state dog pounds, is just roughly 2 million. So that's without looking at the voluntary sector at all. So I would say straight away, people need to wise up and wise up quickly, because every 70 seconds, an American child will end up needing emergency surgery from a dog bite. So it's a minefield out there. Now, the good side, and this is what I've experienced for the better in the last few years, I've managed to basically have some fantastic years in conversations like yours, Chris, where I've poached some of your guests to be my advisors over the last few years. And this would only be possible in the internet age. With VR and AR and augmented reality, we're going into a situation where people can do things, or they can stretch their imagination, stretch their education in canine care and in dog care in ways that were never possible before. So it's actually, possible to get an AR image of what a particular dog would look like in your house as a pup, and maybe 6 months later when it's grown fully and suddenly you've got a donkey in the house without realizing it. So I would say the good side is it's a long way to go, and I think it's only in its infancy, especially in the virtual reality world. And one of your past guests, Barry Hawley, if you remember, he's an expert in VR, and I'm delighted to say I've been working with him since he appeared on your show. So, Chris, my business and my world and the dogs owe a lot to you.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that. I had a quick thought as we were listening to you share with us, Karen, that I feel like now that we've entered into this virtual state of work, or hybrid, if you will, we've come to appreciate how many of our colleagues and strangers and friends, what their homes look like, what their lives look like a little bit more. How many pets have we seen in the past 3 years from our devices? How many different children and kids playing around, and the color of their sofas? It has allowed us to be a little bit more expressive and expansive, and get just that much of a purview into other people's lives. And so when we think about the correlation between happiness and the pet and the dog virtually, it all makes sense to me. Bobby, I'm coming back to you because I want to put a little bit more emphasis and context into this state of assistance, this state of activity and being active in this world. We talked about a little bit ago about why it's necessary for us to be active, and to what reason that we have not been. But I want to actually talk about more of the benefits that come with from being active, from being more involved, from actually taking time to say, you know what, I'm gonna put my phone down, I'm gonna put my laptop away, and I'm gonna go and be active and enjoy reality. Now, audience, for those that are sitting with us listening today, I'm bringing this up is because we often put an emphasis on technology with GatherVerse, and we also see humanity, but we tend to stray more closer to technology. I want to delve into the appreciation that we meet at the intersection of humanity and technology, and so the world in that sense is our oyster. What is the benefit for us getting out, being away from technology, Bobby, and how does that make us better for when we arrive back to technology?
I think and it's a fantastic question, because again, it's the number one, it's an addiction for a lot of people to even put that phone down. They can't. And so you got to appreciate, again, the simple things in life. Getting out, getting the fresh air, and instead of keeping your head down, getting this posture because you're walking all day long, looking down at your phone, you're out there, chest out, shoulders down, allowing gravity to take over. You're breathing in the fresh air. You know what I mean? You're talking with people. You're moving around in a way that is, again, not stuck right there in front of you, not stuck here down below you. And it's critical, because if you look at some of our kids and some of our children, as I talk to people, I can't even get them to look me in the eye sometimes. And they say a half a sentence to me. It's almost like I think they want to type it on their phone and have the phone talk. And you're now losing that sense of relationships, and helping really, there's a lot to be said about the energy and the connection that you feel when you're around certain people, because again, you can hear them talk, you can look them in the eyes, you can just see their gestures, you can see their body confidence, and it's gone. And you need that as an individual to, again, this is what your body's about. Science, again, I hate to always bring it back to science, is proven a lot of times, but the holistic approach and the modalities of stretching and breathing and moving and dancing and laughing and it's a lot of times it goes to the wayside, you know, and what forces you to laugh or forces you to do is what you're looking at right here. And so you got to give away so that you can appreciate it, and there's so much more benefit to it. When you think of exercise and movement and you think of just getting out there, your body responds more. Your body reacts faster. Your brain is more connected. Your heart is opened up for more joy, for more love, for more care. Your joints feel better. I mean, I don't like to keep going on, but it's frustrating because when you work with people who are sick, disabled, and terminally ill, and you then see people who don't see the blessing of what's out there as opposed to this, you get a little bit of a shorter fuse sometimes as a trainer or professional, because you're like, you just are missing it, and I wish you could just appreciate it. And so there has to be a disconnect. There has to be, or I truly think you lose your personality and your character in a way that you become, in some degrees, I don't want to say definable, but you sometimes don't even know the person looking back at you. You just, you just don't.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that, Bobby. I'm sitting here thinking about what you just expressed, and audience, as you're joining us here at GatherVerse.live, I think about what are the benefits of having artificial intelligence, another technology that has arrived at our doorstep. And it seems to me that might AI become so efficient to be able to serve as an assistant, a tool, utility, to be able to help us work at our daily tasks that some become mundane, become rather duplicitous, and we're able to use these tools to give us more time to stay away from technology. In other words, let this tool serve as an intermediary on my behalf to work and to build and to hack and to code and to make and to develop and to communicate with other people's AI agents, if you will, so that I could take more time to actually do what may matter more, is being more sustainable in life, keeping a more healthier disposition, a more healthier lifestyle, spending more time with my pets, spending more time in our communities, making that more better and vibrant and building, as opposed to us saying, okay, we're building AI. What's the next technology? What's the next technology? Can't we hit a ceiling at some point to say, okay, we've innovated enough. Now we get to go back to doing things that matter even more to us, because it seems like, I know here in Silicon Valley, we've created a whole lifetime culture of innovation and technology and ever building. But at what point, audience, do we stop? I remember the film Forrest Gump, and he goes running and he's running and he's running and he's running for days and for weeks and for months. But at some point, he said, okay, I'm done. I do think about that. I do think about it in consideration. Jesper, I want to ask you, when we're talking about the metaverse and we're talking about the new ways of being able to work out and to become healthier, to work together, do you feel like people really have a real appetite to want to do their work regimens and workouts in the metaverse? Or are we going back to the 24-hour fitness gym and Bally's or wherever else you call it in your local town or home? Or do you feel like people want to work more in a personal and private space where they can interact differently, that it breaks up the monotony of the average machine weight? Are they bought and sold on the metaverse when it comes to wellness activity?
No, I don't think yet people are bought into fit, what we can say, more fitness and wellness in the metaverse. Also, just speaking for personal, then in my town there's this local park where you can go out and work out. There's this small area where we have a bunch of bars to do pull-ups. You can do dips, and all just during the corona, the pandemic, there every morning, every single morning, I was there and I met the same people every single day. We wasn't relying on each other, but we started building a small community. And so as you will do your workout, you spoke to other people, you were able to socialize, So you kind of melted all these different aspects together. So you melded the socialization, you met other people, you spoke to them, you got your fitness in, you maybe shared some ideas for nutrition, how can you improve some other aspect of wellness. Some guy, he might be a personal trainer, and then you could join his class. You could maybe join an outdoor yoga class, and so on. So everything just flowed in this more like local community. And how I see it, even though we develop into be use more and more technology, you always have a opposite pole. So we will, even though there's come more technology, we'll have also this opposite, that we go completely away from all the technology. And it is good that we have these periods where we just leave everything. And that also goes, as Bobby said, that can you just have a conversation with another person without looking at your phone? Just put it away. Don't show it. Don't put it on the table. Just completely make it disappear. Maybe Harrison can help with that.
That's a huge request, and thank you for sharing, Jesper. We know how attached we are to our devices. We really don't want to let them go, but at some point we'll have to. It'll become necessary, whether we like it or not. And there's been times where we've had to part company with them, if even for a little bit. Harrison, when I sit here and think about the steps that you've taken and the things that you've shared with us, I want you to reach, and I want you to lean in and talk to the audience that's watching right now, because some people are literally sick and tired of their present state of work, and they want to take a leap, and they're looking at you now and saying, if Harrison could survive doing what he does, might I be able to do the same thing? Can I go out here as an entrepreneur, as a solo individual, and succeed? What does it take in this present state, mindset wise? Is it a move that people make to become more healthier because of the weighted pressure that they have of their current commitments? What can you speak to them to let them know what they might be interacting with on this path in the forest as they head in? Because that forest is unknown to many, except for the ones that have been there. Tell them what they might expect to see beyond the pine and the trees.
Sure. Well, I'm definitely no like motivational speaker. I can't give you the keys to anything. No way can I do that. But what I can say is that like right now, following this path, I certainly, am like in the previous talk, though the very last person said something like this. You really had to like believe in yourself, because I sort of like fluctuate between like, oh my God, I'm crazy. What am I doing? This is terrifying, because like there's nobody else in the world doing this, like just focusing on exactly this thing. Maybe like 2 or 3 people somewhere, but like for the most part, there's not. And then I am over here like jumping up and down in my basement, like, oh my God, this is the best idea. This is gonna work so good. And like I just have to like, formulate it to make it work. So I sort of fluctuate between those two things. And what I think is important is to like, put the real steps in place. Say like, okay, what am I trying to do here? And me specifically, I'm dealing with people who have preconceived notions about magic, preconceived notions about Zoom calls. And then I'm like offering them both of those things together. And they're like, whoa, no, bro, no, thanks. So I'm really like, but I see past that and what's possible. And so really I have to keep my eye on that ball and then take small steps in order to try and get there. And, whatever you got to do along the way to convince yourself that you're doing something great. And even if you develop some backup plans, along the way or whatever it is, that's fine. But like, you do have to jump off the cliff. You do have to say, this is what I'm doing. Like one thing that I struggled a lot with was like, how can I repackage virtual magic to make sense in a post-pandemic world? And what I realized is I have to be a virtual magician. I can't just be a magician that does virtual magic, because then it's like, well, what is this thing? It must not be important. But my entire life has become this thing. So by really embodying that, it's allowed me to accomplish more, I think, and get into some of the more interesting situations, some of the more beautiful virtual magic shows that I've ended up doing were only because I really like jumped off that cliff and was able to, convince people that I've never met that this was this thing that I do. And they were like, okay, well, here's 4,000 people in all over the world. Let's do it. And boom, amazing show. So really, you do have to jump off the cliff. You do have to sort of focus, and you can't just be like willy-nilly all over the place. But yeah, there are certainly days where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is a terrible idea. And then there are days where, again, I'm jumping up and down. So yeah, it's definitely a journey. But those small steps and the focus and believing in the idea and making sure you have like the right motives in the beginning, I think is obviously important.
And ultimately, Harrison, what do you believe that you brought to people's lives?
A new kind of connection. I mean, I'm able to produce an event that cannot happen any other way. I'm able to bring people together in the moment and allow them to experience something together and see and hear each other, that in a lot of the cases, especially the new sort of ones that I've been working with over the past year, these are events that cannot happen any other way, that will not or would not happen any other way. They simply do not exist without the ability to have a reason for everybody to get on the Zoom call and something for them all to pay attention to and be engaged by in that moment. So like really, I instead of providing meeting entertainment, which was the first 2.5 years of virtual magic, now what I provide is a reason for people to get on Zoom, a reason for us all to come together no matter where we are. And because of the flexibility and the many different types of shows that you can do in sort of this format, once you sort of cram it into people's heads and you make them understand what's possible and they actually do it, they go, whoa,
sure.
This is not a virtual event. This is something more. I mean, it's still a virtual event, but
sure.
But yeah, that's what I really, that's what I think. I mean, I think I forget the question at this point, but yeah, something.
No, you answered it quite well, Harrison. Jesper, I'll ask the same thing of you. Ultimately, what of benefit have you brought to people in your life and what you do?
Boy, it's a tough question, I would say, but also a good one. But I think it's in sense that because people usually, when I speak to people and my clients, is that it always is that, okay, then I have to go to the gym. It takes me 30 minutes. Then I spend an hour and then 30 minutes back. And before you know, you have spent so much time just to start working out. And always what I try to remind them about is that have you considered just starting doing 5 push-ups? Well, most often haven't done that. So, and it's basically you can just roll out a bit. You get down on the floor, do 5 push-ups, and that's it. So you just make it so easy as possible. And what I've seen when I really get people to recognize that there's actually a possibility to start and then be consistent with a workout, then they feel very motivated and inspired, and they usually people they will start banging out 10 push-ups on the floor right away just to get started, which is a joy to see.
Terrific. I asked the same of you in a different way, Bobby. They come and meet you after GatherVerse. They've been meeting you for days and weeks and years. They come and interact with you. What is it that you want them to take away from their experience with you?
I just want them to be honest with themselves, to be very candid. It's really simple. You know, I want people, I want organizations, I want groups just to be able to figure out, you know, what it is that's going to make them happy from, you know, on a variety of different levels, like I mentioned in the beginning, mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically. You know, you said it though, or someone else did, and it was so important. You only have so much time here. Why not enjoy it as much as possible? Take advantage of it. It's a flipping chess match out there. You know, you got to just, you know, be consistent in your approach, stay diligent, you know, try not to be lazy, laugh a little bit, you know, and you have to be healthy. You need to exercise. I'm never going to look at anyone and say, yeah, you don't need to. You have to move. That doesn't mean you got to be the next guy doing CrossFit and trying to do backflips and pull yourself up. It could be the person, you know, again, sitting there and doing shadow boxing because that's all the energy you have today, and putting in some music and just kind of flowing in your seat for an hour. It's that simple. Embrace the positive endorphins that you can. And it doesn't have to be difficult. We choose to make it sometimes.
Indeed. Thank you, Bobby. Kyron, as I asked you our last and final question, I want to know, because you spent so much time in the traditional world, ever before we became this darn digital, from your lens, what did we leave behind that we should keep with us?
Wow, that's I think a very simple question, believe it or not. That I'm going to go back 50 years. And we used to, you know, as a family, we'd get into the car and we'd head to the local lake. And about a half a mile from the local lake, we'd let the dog out. And my dad used to drive the car to the lake and see if the dog could catch up with the car. And this was the sort of the traditional thing every weekend. And the dog was the big part of our lives then. Now, I think what we've lost at the moment is it's like time has just compressed into everybody's day. And, you know, when we have the AI and the VR and everything else, and we've conferences, it's like the natural world doesn't exist for us anymore. And I think that's where we have to go back to. And it's the simple things like just walking on the grass, saying hello to animals, and trying to be masters of the art of doing nothing for at least 10 minutes a day.
Well said, well expressed, well met. Thank you for joining us on this kaleidoscope of exploration. There certainly was a lot said, a lot to compress. We invite you to join us again. Audience, we have 2 more final speakers that are coming up with us at the conclusion of this GatherVerse WellVerse Day 2. Thank you.
I've got ADHD and I burned out 5 years ago. Both are known to accelerate aging and shorten life. Nevertheless, I'm 31 years biologically younger than my chronological age. I'm Ines O'Donovan and I'm known as the ageless futurist, helping women entrepreneurs to be healthier, perform better, slow and reverse aging, and live longer. In my work, I'm working with a lot of women who are juggling a lot of different roles and only start paying attention to symptoms once they get severe, once diseases start developing. And when they then go to their doctor, they feel misunderstood by the sick care system that we are all experiencing today. And this is what motivates me, because we have the potential to have personalized treatments, especially as we move more into virtual therapeutics. Let me take you on a journey into what virtual therapeutics are and what we will experience in the future. What are virtual therapeutics? At its core, it's a fusion of personalized medicine with virtual reality and an increasingly immersive engagement in a virtual world in the metaverse. Let's dissect it briefly a little bit more. So personalized medicine is all about making the right and best decision for you that is based on your genetic predispositions, on your biomarkers, on your lifestyle, on your goals, all the way to your daily schedule. It's about optimizing your health, performance, energy, and longevity. Virtual reality, we all know. And we are increasingly living in a virtual reality where we can see like either an enhancement of the physical reality or even replacing the physical reality with real or imagined experiences. And virtual therapeutics is really about fusing both and bringing you the best tailored treatment to you and an experience of treatment in the virtual world. Let me give you an example. I have been talking about burnout, but it might just be that you have a stressful day. You put on some glasses or contact lenses and immerse yourself in a virtual world. You have a virtual world that's designed specifically to you, that is exploring what are the things that trigger your stress, what are the things that actually help you to release that stress. And you could be, for instance, in like a really nice forest, you could be at the beach, and you could also hear the sounds, you could smell a smell that is actually calming you. Or you could feel like a warm, soft touch on your shoulder that gives you the impression like somebody is putting a comforting hand on you. And based on what you're planning, what your goals are, you experience a treatment that might actually go back into a different environment that triggered your stress so that you can explore that. To then apply, for instance, cognitive behavioral therapy or EMDR or other modalities that help you to overcome that, to actually resolve the stress and be able to deal with any stressful situations far easier in the future. The ultimate goal of virtual therapeutics is really about making the healing process far more immersive, engaging, joyful, and adaptive to any situation, creating a path for you that lets you achieve what you want. Let's have a very quick look at where we are right now. There is clearly a need for personalized medicine. And we do see a rise in functional medicine and in longevity medicine. There is a demand. We also see the first successes with virtual reality therapies in helping with ADHD, with depression, anxiety, autism. And we just recently have seen that there was a study that helped to replace anesthesia with virtual reality. And we do see, of course, a lot of rapid innovation in AR and VR, and especially in AI this year, where we can increasingly create virtual immersive experiences just by ourselves. But at the moment, devices are still quite uncomfortable and expensive. And we are only in the very early stages for haptic closing. They are uncomfortable, they are expensive, they cannot do all the things we want them to do. And the senses that we can use and that we can address with current technologies are mostly limited to visual and auditory. And if we look a little bit closer, a lot or most of the VR treatments that we see right now are focused on lifestyle or are being explored in research. So where are we going? And that is what's so exciting. In the future, virtual therapeutics will be fully immersive, engaging all your senses, including smell, including touch, and of course, including auditory and visual. It will be super comfortable, light. It could be contact lenses, for instance. It could be like haptic clothing that just fits you like a second skin. And they will be affordable to everybody. We have seen the same development with mobile phones. At the beginning, only a few people could afford them. But that helped to create a market that is now available to everybody. Pretty much everybody has a mobile phone. And while now having therapy has a bit of a stigma and is something separate from the rest of our life, but it's supposed to influence our life. In the future, we will integrate those virtual therapeutics into our daily life, creating super small, almost imperceptible shifts in our daily lifestyles, adjusting bit by bit by bit to eventually create massive changes. And because there are AI algorithms that constantly develop and adjust to what we need at this moment and what works best for you as an individual, those perceptions and those adjustments will be happening really in lifetime and in real time, so that your life improves over time. And it will be fun, engaging, fun, not something that is like, oh my God, I have to go to therapy again. No, you can, for instance, take even a nutritional cook into your own home, and he or she recommends the right recipe for you at this moment with the right nutrients, and helps you in a way that you enjoy to cook the perfect meal for you and your family. And as I said, those adjustments are occurring continuously because we are all changing all the time. And over time, we can get a dramatic change and improvement in all our life health and also longevity. And there will be, of course, new fields, from diagnosis to intervention to really actually tracking what's going on a daily basis, from lifestyle to medical uses, and from optimizing your health all the way to longevity, so that throughout your life you can achieve massive success while feeling amazing at the same time. Virtual therapeutics are not just about survival. They are about thriving. It's all about a future where technology enhances our capabilities and our health, where we live longer, healthier, more successful lives, leaving a mark in the world. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest research and developments, I do invite you to get all my weekly tips and updates based on the latest research and future technologies.
Hello everyone, my name is Lena and I'm the founder of Ethereal Inc. Today we gather here to explore the profound intersectionality of wellness, climate change, and the transformative power of mindfulness and meditation in addressing these pressing global challenges. In a world grappling with the consequences of our actions on the environment, it becomes imperative to understand the intricate connections between personal well-being and the health of our planet. By delving into the realms of mindfulness and meditation, we can unlock the keys to fostering a sustainable future for generations to come. The intersectionality of wellness and climate change lies in the understanding that the well-being of individuals and the well-being of the planet are deeply intertwined. So let's explore this connection in greater detail. Firstly, wellness in its holistic sense encompasses physical, mental, emotional, and social damage. Climate change, on the other hand, presents a formidable threat to human health and well-being. Rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and the degradation of natural resources directly impact our physical health. Increased prevalence of respiratory problems, heat-related illnesses, and the spread of vector-borne diseases are just a few examples of the detrimental effects of climate change on our well-being. Moreover, the mental and emotional toll of climate change cannot be understated. As we witness the devastating consequences unfolding around us, such as natural disasters and loss of biodiversity, eco-anxiety and distress becomes prevalent. The fear of an uncertain future, coupled with a sense of helplessness, affects our mental health, leading to stress, anxiety, and even depression. But how can we navigate these challenges? This is where mindfulness and meditation enter the picture. Mindfulness, simply put, is the practice of cultivating present moment awareness and non-judgmental attention. By being fully present in the here and the now, we develop a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us. This heightened awareness allows us to recognize the impact of our action on the environment, fostering a sense of responsibility and conscious decision making. Moreover, mindfulness enables us to develop resilience in the face of adversity. As we encounter these challenges posed by climate change, cultivating a mindful approach empowers us to respond rather than react. By fostering emotional resilience and mental clarity, we can navigate the complexities of climate change and engage in constructive solutions. But mindfulness does not stop at the individual level. It extends to collective action and global stewardship, which brings us to the practice of meditation. Meditation as a form of contemplative practice deepens self-reflection and nurtures compassion. Through regular meditation, we embark on an inward journey of self-discovery, exploring our relationship with the environment and recognizing our interconnectedness with all living beings. This shift in perspective cultivates empathy, leading to a profound sense of responsibility for the well-being of the planet. When our hearts are filled with compassion, we are driven to take action. Meditation inspires us to become environmental advocates, activists, and stewards of the earth. It encourages us to engage in sustainable practices, promote conservation efforts, and advocate for policies that protect our planet's fragile ecosystems. By embracing mindfulness and meditation, we can embody a mindful and sustainable future. We can make conscious choices in our daily lives, such as adopting eco-friendly lifestyle, reducing waste, and supporting renewable energy sources. We can also engage in mindful consumption, opting for sustainable products and supporting businesses that prioritize environmental responsibility. Furthermore, mindfulness and meditation empowers us to become agents of climate change within our community. By sharing our knowledge and experiences, we can educate and raise awareness about the intersectionality of wellness, health, and sustainability. and climate change. We can inspire others to adopt sustainable practices, collaborate on environmental initiatives, and collectively drive positive change. So, conclusively, the intersectionality of wellness and climate change compels us to explore new ways of thinking, being, and acting. By empowering and embracing mindfulness and meditation, we can foster a sustainable future. Thank you.
That's it. That's all we got. WellVerse Summit 2023 has just concluded. It's okay to say you need help. It's okay with not being okay. And in everything that we build, please, please, please consider humanity first. I know that some of this may not matter to everyone. Some things don't matter until it comes knocking on our doors. But we're so thankful and grateful for everybody that continues to support GatherVerse over these past 2 days, and all the events that we have to come. It means that much. We only ask that you share that which was freely given. Tell somebody about this. And if you don't tell someone about it, then the only other thing we might ask is that you live it. We're here to help. We're here to be an advocate, a friend, if you will. We don't want anything else but that. Human betterment, compassion, and common care. We only have a little bit of time to do this. Thank you for giving us some of your time that you'll never get back again. It's been valuable. We keep it and hold it close. Thank you. Thank you for taking time to gather with us. And until next time, may our gather be well. Take care.